You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Free Hill, got it blocked. Here come the Huskers. Newsome. 6.
I love Quentin Newsome.
Hold was good. Kick is up. Long enough. And good enough. For 55, a career long for Tristan Albano.
Really excited to see it go through, so it was amazing.
And the ball's intercepted. Picked off by Tommy Hill. Has an INT. He's at the 15 to the 20. Breaks a tackle. Skirts to the outside. 25. Makes an man miss. Slides his way to the 28-yard line. Tommy Hill's second pick in as many weeks.
This is Sparta!
Give it to Johnson. Johnson up the head. Touchdown, Nebraska.
Spartans, ready your breakfast and eat hot.
4th and 12, Card. Picked up again. Tommy Hill, his second pick of the ball game.
We will stand and fight.
Get to the end zone. It'll be a safety.
A new age has begun.
Wide open, it's Jalen Lloyd. The throw, he makes a catch. 30, 20, 15, 10, 5. Touchdown, Nebraska.
Spartans, tonight we dine in hell.
Touchdown, Nebraska. The ball's picked up by the Huskers. Scooting down the sidelines. Quentin Newsome to the 30, 20, 15, 10, 5. Touchdown.
You fight if it means you die. You fight, fight, fight. You take for what you want. And I'm just waiting for something good to happen. Who's the guy that's supposed to make the difference? I'm surrounded by it. And you guys freaking do it. We on the same page? Fight, fight, fight.
We're in for one wild night.
And if we die, we die.
I do like the addition of Spartans.
I know there's like a lot of, I didn't realize it at the time, so good on Shane for picking it up. There's a lot of 300 vibes in some of those speeches, where I'm just like, yeah, okay, I could do this.
However, we are playing Michigan State, and are we promoting the fact that they are Spartans?
Well, maybe, but I think we are. I mean, at the end of the day, the Persians did win that war, so.
I don't think anybody was cheering for them, Robbie.
I understand that, and maybe nobody's cheering for Nebraska, but if we're doing a corollary here, you know.
And you know what? Nebraska does have bodies on top of bodies on top of bodies that just keep coming in and replacing guys.
It's true.
So that doesn't shock me that you compared them to the Persians.
I mean, listen, you know,
we have everybody. You have 3 people.
You know, the 90s Huskers were probably a version of an empire, right? So we're getting this thing rolling.
Yeah, and you
again.
know what? It may take 5 weeks in order to defeat the teams that you want to defeat. But guess what? That's exactly what Nebraska is doing right now, and they could be in position for 6. A 6 on the win column side of your record,
but we don't just want one more. Matt Rule told us we don't just want one more.
Well, it's one day at a time.
Yeah.
Right,
So,
day by day.
So 1-0. We'll go 1-0 this week.
And then we'll go 3-0 down the stretch.
I mean, listen, I think they do lose one down the stretch. I don't know who.
Stop it.
No, I'm just being, but I think 8-4 is like, I think that's where I'm at now. Which,
even if they go 8-4, there's still a chance that they play in Indy.
Absolutely. Yeah. They don't have to win out to go to Indy. But if they do win out, they almost certainly will play in Indy because let's be honest, Minnesota's going to lose to Ohio State. That is an inevitability. So, I mean, listen, if you had told me at the start of the season that I'd be sitting here, they're at 5-3 and they lost to both Minnesota and Colorado, I'd be like, yeah, that's not happening. That's not on the table.
Yeah. If you made a poll, that would probably have the lowest percentage of votes.
Yeah, absolutely. Because first of all, I thought they needed to win both of those to make a bowl game. To make a bowl game. Not talking about win the West, not talking about get to 6 wins. Or not talking about get to 8 wins. I'm talking about get to 6 wins, win a bowl to make a bowl game. I thought they needed both of those.
Yeah, also I think we gave Illinois too much credit coming into
probably because they were
last season.
Better last year, right? Probably didn't give Colorado enough credit, even though they're not what the college football world wanted them to be early in the season. They're dramatically more functional than I thought they'd be at any point this year. So good on them there for that. And Minnesota, the Minnesota game was exactly what I thought it was going to be, just went the wrong way.
Right.
Like that's exactly how you expect every Nebraska-Minnesota game to play out. and it went the wrong way for Nebraska. And that's, it happens. But
you know what? Right now, things are going right for Nebraska.
No, things are going great.
And they're playing great football down the back half of the season, which is when you're supposed to be playing your best football.
Yeah, they've won 5 out of 6. They are on the doorstep of bowl eligibility for the first time since 2016. They're on the doorstep of being. I mean, they control their own destiny to play in the Big Ten championship game.
How weird is that to say?
Super weird.
Nebraska controls.
It's November.
Their own destiny.
It's November, and Nebraska's playing football that matters. I'm not really fully prepared for this. Last time this happened, I was not doing this job. Like I was
Were you in radio?
Mostly just Creighton stuff at the time. Like I really had in 2016, I really hadn't started getting many opportunities to do stuff outside
Funny you
of
say
Creighton
that.
yet.
Shane, where were you in 2016? Like, what is your biggest 2016 memory?
I was probably producing a radio show in
Well,
2016.
that's pretty obvious.
Yeah.
But what's your top memory from 2016?
I don't know. I can't even remember what I did yesterday, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I can.
Yeah, again, you were texting us the whole time.
day.
You were at the car dealership.
In 2016, Robbie, I was a freshman in college.
I was gonna say, were you even in college yet? Yeah, but so you were just in college.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I was living in Ashland with my ex-wife, and I was only doing Creighton stuff at the time for radio, and I was still like another year away from getting divorced. And
so good memories for you.
I mean, yeah, that's fine.
It just got dark.
I mean, I talk about my divorce all the time. It's not a big deal.
You do?
I'm trying to think what else I was doing in 2016. I was working downtown in downtown Omaha 2 companies ago now for my day job, at least. Yeah, it's been a minute.
Now that I think about it, I think 2016 would be sophomore year because you would have to wrap it. It would be I graduated high school in 15, which means 15, 16.
Yeah, so 16 would have been spring your freshman year.
So
it would have been fall of your sophomore.
Fall of my sophomore year.
Yeah.
I was living in a dorm. I was calling college basketball games for Lindenwood, which, by the way,
they're going to be right down. You're not
on Monday.
Woods. Are you going down?
Over at PBA. Somebody would like to hook me up with tickets that they don't want to go watch an exhibition game between Nebraska and Lindenwood.
Come on, you can't get credentialed for that? Come on, man.
Hit me up. No, I probably could. I just got to reach out to who's
Keith? Is it Keith?
Well, no, Keith is he everybody? Or is he just football?
I thought he was football, men's basketball, but I might be wrong. No, Seamus. It's Seamus. Seamus does men's basketball.
Yeah, I could probably reach out to him.
Yeah, I'm sure you
could pass. Because I'm going to that game.
Oh, for sure. You have to.
We were texting with Sautter this morning, who will be on the show with us at 9, as he always is on Friday. He sent us the homepage for Lindenwood men's basketball. and
he goes, yeah, Lindenwood, not good.
Not great. Yep. Yeah, as he's drinking his what is the line in Elf? It tastes like a
tastes like Christmas in a cup?
No, Christmas in a Cup is the proposal.
Oh, that's right. Underrated movie, by the way.
When they go to World's Best Cup of Coffee, and she's like, it tastes like a
crappy cup
of coffee. Okay.
He's like, no, it's the world's best cup of
right,
coffee.
Exactly. So he's drinking his crappy cup of coffee at the hospital, and then he calls Lindenwood. The same thing? No way, Mike. Keenan Cole averaged 12 points a game last year as a freshman.
Nailed it.
Projected to be an all OVC team member in some capacity, probably first team. He's dropping 40.
That seems unlikely.
He is Keisei Tominaga of the OVC.
Has Keisei Tominaga ever dropped 40?
I don't know. I don't think but all I do know is Lindenwood will probably not show up the way that I hope they would in that game.
I mean, listen,
but it's
okay. I've been on the Lindenwood side of those games. It's really tricky.
And now tell me this, though, Robbie.
Yeah.
How many teams that shouldn't have won their opener against D1 college basketball teams actually won their opener?
Yeah, I mean, there's been several D2 teams with exhibitions this year, and there always is.
Lindenwood's D1.
Yeah, right. But, I mean, there's been bigger gaps, right? And although there are some, just being totally honest, from recruiting and stuff, there's some D1s on the East Coast, especially some of those really small D1s that are worse than the D2s around here. Like Wayne State's better than I think Longwood came out here a few years ago to play Creighton, and like Wayne State's better than Longwood. Wayne State's probably not. I don't know if they're better than Florida A&M. I haven't looked at Florida A&M yet this year. I will this weekend because I'm on the call on Tuesday. But there's some of the small D1 teams that I think there's some NAIs around here that are as good as, because the NAIs around here are incredible.
It's because you pick up a local talent that wants to stay close to
home. And that gets overlooked, or they get a walk-on offer at a D1 somewhere, or a lot of the times, and if you're not in this world, you have no reason to know this, but a lot of times D2s will offer like a 30% or 40% scholarship, and that happens a lot of NAIs too, but a guy that's getting 30 or 40% at a D2 is probably getting 60, 70, 80% at an NAIA, and all of a sudden you go, okay, I could play at a higher level, or I could have most of my school paid for.
Right.
And if you've got Pell Grant or anything else like that, like you can almost go for full tuition at some of these NAI schools. And so that's why I got like schools like Morningside will pretty frequently poach Division II quality guys from schools.
Like Connor Milliken.
Milliken's a great example.
Great example from Platteview last year. He's going to Dort.
There's been several guys in the area that when I was recruiting the area, I'd be like, that's a D2 guy. I can't touch him. And they end up going to Morningside or somewhere like that. And I still couldn't touch him because I'm not winning a recruiting battle against Morningside. But at the time, it was like, man, that's so frustrating because we still have to go play. We still have to go play Morningside.
Right.
It's like I understood losing recruiting battles for kids that I knew were NAI kids, but for them to pull down D2 kids frequently was challenging.
Well, it's harder to compete with the playing time element that NAIA offers versus D1 right away.
Sure, yeah. If you're like a fringe D1 guy.
And basketball's that sport to where you can't just find another position on the court that you're good at, or like another position on the field, I guess I should say, that you're good at. If you take baseball or you take football, I mean, we've seen it with this Nebraska football team. We've seen guys go from offense to defense, lickety split, and get playing time because they're just looking for playing time, and there's just more spots to fill, so it's easier to find it. Now, there's also greater in number,
right?
But there's still, easier spots on the field to jump into.
Well, there's
you can get your playing time, whether it's in special teams form or like I said, offensively or defensively. But there's 5 spots on a basketball court, and you're probably not playing the center position if you aren't over a certain height.
Sure, yeah.
Which I would put like 6'5"?
Depends on
NAIA. 6'4"?
Yeah, 6'4", 6'4",
right?
6'5" in NAIA.
So if you are of Connor Milliken's size, and I don't even want to guess, but I know he was a guard at Platteview.
6'2", maybe, I want to say.
He's probably got 3 spots on the floor that he can legitimately play.
Yeah.
And now you're taking things off the table if you're going to a Nebraska, right? Where you're plucking guys from all over the country. Meanwhile, NAIA is so localized when they're finding guys. Like, yes, they can get, somebody, in the portal or somebody that is, in a bordering state. But I'll tell you this, Ravi, I didn't even know anything about NAIA schools when I was getting recruited because it seemed as though NAIA never branched out further than their borders.
Yeah, which is super unusual. And I mean, it's not unusual, but it's very specific to the school, right? Because especially for us, we weren't very well established when I was at Grace and Nebraska Christian College. We weren't nearly as well established as the NAIs in our area. So we tried super hard to get local kids, but we knew that the kids around here that knew of the Morningsides and the Dones and the places like that and the Concordias, that we were probably losing those recruiting battles. So we tried as hard as we could to get some local kids, but we branched out a ton. So our roster was from all over the place because we had to, right? Because the kids around here, it was going to be really hard to get them to come to us instead of a Morningside or instead of a Doan or one of those places. And so we had kids from like Vegas, California, Florida. Like we literally went nationwide. And what our strategy was, and a lot of it's weird because it's regional, right? There's certain parts of the country that have a ton of NAI schools, like Nebraska, Iowa, South Dakota. There's a ton of NAI schools right
100%.
Around here. Colorado, I don't think has a single one.
I don't think Missouri has one.
They have like one D2 in Colorado because I think Adams State just moved from D2 to NAI. I'm not sure. There's been recent movement there, but there's not a ton of D2s. There's no or one NAIA now. There was no NAIs when we were recruiting out there. Our best players came from Colorado which I get as a border state, but because
plenty in Missouri. Jeez, there's a ton.
Yeah, we played a bunch in Missouri, and Kansas. But this region is super NAI heavy. But we would go to Colorado, and we had a kid that ended up getting kind of recruited, and he still plays professional basketball, but he ended up getting recruited and to transfer to bigger schools, and he didn't. But he scored 40 on Oral Roberts when we played him. And he dropped 72 on Doan when we played him. This dude was just a walking bucket, and we only got him because he was in Colorado and there's no NAIs or D2s out there to recruit him. And so it really is super region specific in how these teams operate.
Yeah. And that, I guess the point outside of, because I didn't even know, like I said, Missouri had NAIA schools. I only found out really what the NAIA was after going to Iowa and covering those schools. Now, Lindenwood was NAIA at one point before they went to D2.
Yeah.
But these schools on this list, I'm thinking okay, baseball, who's a good baseball school? And I maybe see two in Missouri. That's a good baseball school. But you can go.
Then you've got up here though. You've got Bellevue, who's like a baseball powerhouse.
Right.
They are perennially really good at baseball.
And then I think about football, and I'm you got to come to Iowa if you're going to be playing for the best football conference around. Because you get the team out of Des Moines, Marion, right? That's in Des Moines. You get Morningside, you get obviously the GPAC conference.
Northwestern
is like the SEC of the NAIA.
In every sport, honestly. They're incredible.
Across the board.
They're the best athletic conference in the country.
But I had no idea what that was until I moved up that way, which, is okay, right? Because it works for the NAIA, but it sucks to know that later on in life. What if I just reached out to one of those schools? Because that's really what it is, especially with baseball nowadays. It's you send emails to coaches of you hitting balls in the cage, taking ground balls, taking fly balls, working on footwork, agility drills, things like that. You send clips of that to coaches.
Yeah.
Because not all coaches like that are looking on the so-called recruiting sites.
Yeah.
To just
and it's harder to find because the recruiting sites aren't as accurate, and a lot of them are pay sites. You have to pay to be on the site at that level, right? And so it's a lot harder to find guys. So honestly, it's a very old school recruiting mentality where you have to have contacts in different parts of the country that you trust and can give you talent. But honestly, probably a third of our roster every year, at least, maybe a third to a half, was kids that reached out to us.
Yeah, and you kind of have an appreciation for that too, because they have a want to be there.
There's a obvious desire to try and perform at the next level.
And you're making it easy on the coaches to find all your stuff.
No,
because there's a lot of times where you may see a video of somebody, but that's all you see. You don't have in front of you, because coaches are busy people.
Yeah.
They're doing everything from recruiting to scheduling to planning trips, things like that. And practice with the team almost every day, even during the off season. You have these coaches that are looking for things at easiest convenience. And if you're providing everything for them, they can say right then and there, yeah, this is a good person for us, or no, it's not. And then boom, hey, this school likes you or they don't.
Yeah.
Versus you send them one thing and they're like, oh, I'm interested. And then you never hear back.
By the end of my coaching career, and I still do it kind of as a consultant basis for some of the guys that I know, but my entire job was basically just filtering through scouting potential recruits, whether it was any guy that reached out to us. It was my job to look into them, look at their tape, and let the head coach know whether or not this was somebody worth pursuing. It was my job to basically scout the metro and scout anybody in the area to try and figure out, hey, which guys can play at this level, but which guys want to play at this level. Because that's the other thing. There's kids in high school that just decide not to play anymore that probably could play at the NAIA D3 level and be useful guys, right? But sometimes they're I want to go to a big school. I just kind of want to be a student now. And I totally get that. But so it's a super challenging and really kind of old school recruiting method. But I do wish more kids understood not only like when they were in high school, not only that the NAI and D3 and all these places exist, but also the quality of sports that are there. Because, you know, like Midland's a great example out here in Fremont. Like Midland commits so much time, effort, resources to sports. You know, they've kind of decided to define their school by their athletic department and with all those different sports they offer. And they've done that in a kind of in an effort to make their name known in a way that it wouldn't otherwise just be like, oh, isn't that school in Fremont? Like, I don't really know. But I just wish more kids knew about NAIA sports in general, because
or just lower level programs, even JUCO,
NAIA, JUCO, D3, even D2 to a certain extent. Like, there's such a high level of play at those places. I was talking with a bunch of people on Twitter about this yesterday. The gap, especially, we were talking basketball, but especially after you get past the blue bloods and the teams that are, you know, Final Four contenders, or like, especially if you get past the, like, hey, these are teams that are going to go to the NCAA tournament. Once you get past those teams, the gap between a really good NAI program and a lower level Division I men's basketball program,
if
is
any,
way smaller than you think. It's probably depth and a little bit of size, because you're not usually going to get the 6'9", 6'10", 7-footers at NAIA. But if you play a style that you don't need them, that's when you see these teams either play close or beat some of the Division I teams. The gap is way smaller than people realize, especially now with the COVID year that's kind of messed up recruiting classes a little bit. A lot of the better guys end up filtering down to smaller programs. And so you're in a place where these D2s
of the beast.
Yeah, these D2s and NAIs are stacked with guys that probably could have played low division, like low major Division I basketball.
Right. And I know, like, everybody's dream is to go play for their school,
Absolutely.
their state school. Like, especially I found that out quickly once I moved to Nebraska, how passionate people are about Nebraska and wanting to be in Nebraska at some point. But, you know, also there's that, you know, that wake-up call of, hey, you may not be good enough to play at Nebraska 1, or it may not be worth your time to wait to try to find your chance at playing at Nebraska, unless you're like a super talented football or basketball player. Now, I had a quick story for you, because you mentioned like old school recruiting, and I've asked my dad this before, because he swam at Eastern Illinois. He was a 4-year D1 swimmer there, and grew up in the state of Illinois. And I'm like, how do you like get found in, let's see, he was born in, he's going to hate that I said this, born in 63, which would make him in college in what, the 80s?
Yeah, the early 80s, early to mid 80s.
Like, and so I go, how do you like get found at that point in time? Because internet wasn't a thing.
Especially in swimming, where it's not like as prominent of a sport.
But he actually like laid it out, and it's pretty simple. He's like, all my times were in the paper.
Yeah.
And you can't fake swim time.
Yeah, that's true.
it's just kind of like running on a track.
It's probably
right?
easier to recruit like track and swim
because
than it is.
Because you know, if Ravi swims a 50-meter freestyle in 15 seconds.
Yeah, in a good time. You're like, oh, that's going to translate.
Yeah, you're like, well, you're not lying about that, right? And if you are lying about that, I'll see that when you show up and I have my stopwatch out.
Coming up next, we'll set up the show and let you know what's coming here on a Football Friday on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We will be back.
This is a good football team with really good players that's been stuck in some adverse situations. I mean, they played the number 8 team in the country. It's outstanding. I mean, you know, number 8, as dynamic a D tackle as you'll see in the league. You know, edge pass rusher. So they have really good players, really good coaches. They're playing for each other, and I have a lot of respect for them. From adverse situations, you know, they played the number 2 team in the country, and they were.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Yeah, there's not many that are in that situation. I think if a guy helps us win, we'll play him, right? If a guy can help us win, so I mean that's what they're all here for. They want to play, as long as they want to play. If a guy's like, Coach, I don't want to play, I just don't know how you win with players who aren't ready to play, and that's not a negative thing. Sometimes the guy's just not ready mentally, or But I think if a guy's going to go in and play significant snaps and help us win, then great. If they're playing 10, 12 snaps a game of real football, a lot of times that's what you're playing as a redshirt freshman or as a sophomore. So if they're just kind of going in to at the end of a game, or they're going in like to be the 2-on kickoff and someone else could do that, then trying to rotate someone else in there so the team's healthy long term. But anybody that's having a significant impact, then we would probably continue to play them.
Yes. Thank you, Shane. Do you know what this is?
No. It sounds familiar. What is it?
This is the OG instrumental from Fortnite.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
And the new map, the old map, I should say, the update is tonight, or it was yesterday morning it was this morning at 3 a.m.
Yeah.
It's going back to the old map.
Okay.
Dude.
Did you get up to play?
The servers are going to break down. I probably won't get to play after Omaha hockey.
Yeah.
Because it's going to break. I'm going to go home and play.
Yeah.
It's the OG map.
You got to play mid-afternoon when all the kids are in school.
Listen to this music. Like, that doesn't get you hype.
We are back on Hurrdat Sports Radio here. I'm Ravi Lulla. The gamer nerd is Andrew Rogers. I'm just kidding.
It is true.
Yeah, it's all right. We're all nerds about something, right? Like, you wouldn't do this for a living unless you're a huge nerd about sports. Like, well, everybody's a nerd about something.
Nerd.
We are here on AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. I want to set up the show for you real quick. Special guest for you coming up at 7:45. We're gonna have old Damon Benning on the show.
Let's do it.
I'm excited
Big
to talk
game
to
this week.
Yeah, excited to talk to DB. He's got big game not only with Michigan State, he's also got obviously big game with West Side, Bell West.
I'm gonna call it bigger.
Bigger.
I'm gonna say bigger.
Well, I know
I think DB would also call that a bigger game.
Yeah. Well, listen, there's they're in the playoffs, so obviously that's there's more at stake here than a regular season college football game, although getting to that 6th win would be a huge deal. But I know some things have been said on some sides of that rivalry that DB is, I'm sure, feels some kind of way about. So we will talk
recently.
Well, I think it sounded like after the Bellevue West game last week, sounded like Huffman kind of wanted another go at West Side. And we saw how that went last time.
Hey, I don't want any go at West Side.
I was going to say, and then listen, you have to play them either anyway. So I understand like trying to get yourself hyped up and get your team hyped up about it. But you have to be insane if you want to go at West Side this year. So we'll talk to DB about some Nebraska high school playoffs, a little bit of Nebraska, Michigan State as well at 7:45. Michael Rose-Ivey, former Husker, he is going to talk to us about Nebraska, Michigan State at 8. At 8:45, we're going to talk to Phil Rogers. He covers Major League Baseball for Forbes magazine.
Recap it.
Going to talk a little bit of World Series. 9 o'clock, our very own Mike Sautter from Hurrdat Sports will be with us over the stream. Not live today. He's got
live from the hospital.
Yeah, he's got some family responsibilities and stuff he's got to take care of this morning, so he's only joining us for his regular segment rather than the whole hour, but hopefully he'll be back next week. And then we'll wrap up the show, as always, with our guy, Matt Vrzal. So a ton of stuff to get to today, but something I want to make sure we get to before we start getting hot and heavy with the lineup here is there was a meeting yesterday with Tony Petitti and the Big 12 or Big 10 ADs, the 12 of the Big 10 ADs regarding the Michigan situation. There's a report that he's going to meet with Michigan this weekend because he's there, I believe, for the lacrosse something.
He's just a lax bro.
I think it's the Big 10 lacrosse semifinals or something or this weekend in Ann Arbor. And so I think he's like using that as a reason to be in Ann Arbor and talk to Michigan.
The only reason.
Well, he's like, oh, well, I'm here anyway. So now we're going to talk to Michigan. There is a seemingly growing frustration among the other schools in the Big 10 that something needs to be done about Michigan. And I think that's if there's any real consequences for Michigan here, I think it will be because of pressure from their other member institutions, because they all seem super ticked off about it. And
they should be.
Yeah, for sure. I'm not saying they shouldn't be. And as you know, that the NCAA is largely toothless and is going to take forever for their investigation anyway. And so this to me is the most interesting thing, is this back and forth between Petitti and the Big 10 other Big 10 institutions, because I think that's where the real pressure is.
Well, Ravi, I think Petitti lives or dies as commissioner with this decision.
Okay.
Do you remember Kevin Warren?
I do remember Kevin Warren.
And how hated he was for not handling the COVID scheduling properly?
Sure, yeah.
Well, if Tony Petitti doesn't start raining down punishment on Michigan for this sign stealing scandal, I expect the Barbarians to be at the gate for this too.
Yeah.
And let me be clear. I still don't think Kevin did anything wrong.
Yeah.
Nobody knew how to handle that situation.
That's the main point, right? Is that
nobody knew.
Totally unprecedented, and he's doing his best, right? And he was pretty much brand new at the time.
Plus, he left the Big Ten in better position than when he got there by giving him that massive TV deal. And you wouldn't have conference expansion if it weren't for that.
And he landed UCLA and USC before he left. That was a huge one as well.
He did great work in just 3 years' time as commissioner.
Yeah, he really did. But we never forget the COVID thing, which again, like I agree with you, there was no right way to handle that because it was a totally unprecedented situation. Unless you want to call the commissioners from back in 1918 with the Spanish flu and have an idea of what
Yeah, when they all had polio or whatever.
Yeah, and you're dealing with like the bird masks and
Right.
stuff. Like there was no precedent for this. So to be mad at him about it is, I get it's frustrating, but I agree with you there.
This is Petitti's first and most important chance to get the job right. He's got to take action if he expects to be respected in this role by all.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean schools and fans.
Yep.
Because, look, the schools were unhappy with that COVID situation with Kevin Warren.
Mm-hmm.
But the fans were like the ones
that's where
that were extremely
that's where the critical mass
unhappy,
came, was
right?
with the fans.
The majority of that criticism came with the fans.
Mm-hmm.
So in a sign stealing scandal, if the schools are more ticked off than the fans right now, it's a little bit worse because you're dealing with the schools more times than not. Look, Petitti acknowledged speaking with the NCAA, as you said, about the investigation. He refused to really give any details of that conversation.
Mm-hmm.
He told ADs he couldn't make the decision yet because all of this is still based on a whim and he needs more facts. I don't know how much more factual evidence you need than video coverage of Connor Stallions plus ticket receipts,
Venmo.
plus Venmo receipts. I don't know how.
Plus him and
what else do you need? I mean, you open the
Shades
briefcase and you ask me a question, and I guarantee I can pull out the file where Connor Stallions went wrong. But yes, Tony Petitti did. He went up the staircase, right? He took that next step. He hints that there's some willingness to discover, right? But what it doesn't hint is follow through. All this really hints is that he's buying time. And that's okay right now. But unless you rain down punishment, like I said at the very beginning, people will kill him. They will tear him down.
So here's the part that's really challenging for Tony Petitti right now is he has to weigh because he basically works for two people. He works for the schools of the conference, and he also kind of works for the television networks. So his big problem right now is he really needs Michigan to lose, because then he can impose a punishment on them without sacrificing a marquee Big Ten championship game for his television partners, without sacrificing a Big Ten team in the college football playoff for the conference and for television partners. He really needs Penn State to beat Michigan on November 11th. So I don't know if he's just trying to buy himself another week to see if that happens. He really needs Ohio State to beat Michigan so that there's no chance of them getting into the college football playoff and no chance of them playing for the Big Ten championship. That's what he needs more than anything, because that makes his decision and his life so much easier.
But it's not projected that way right now.
No,
right?
it's not.
Michigan is projected to be there, which is why you have to take action early. Show the people that you're here for the people and not just for the status of the job.
Yeah, no, I mean, he doesn't care about the people, though. He cares about keeping the television people happy. He cares about keeping the other schools
That seems like
happy.
a man of the people.
I mean,
think about it.
Keeping
And plus, you remember Alan Haller, the AD at Michigan State? So last year, let's not forget that in Ann Arbor, where numerous players were suspended because of what happened in the tunnel, happened immediately.
Yeah.
Immediately. So think about how hypocritical that is and was to him when he brought that up to Tony Petitti on that call. He's like, hey, this can't be true. And well, two things can be true, right? That can be wrong and this can be wrong. But why was only one a punishment and one is still an afterthought?
We got Damon Benning coming up next.
We will be back.
Bedoni motions. Heinrich gets the snap, play action. Bedoni, two eligible each way. M at the back. Still can't get right. Bedoni, Nebraska's on the board. 6:20 28-yard line. Tommy Hills, second. It's good. He banged it in there. Long is south end zone. Long is 47. He certainly has the left towards the uprights and the kick. He is good. He banged it in there.
We will be back.
6-0 Big Red. It's a 55-yard attempt. Wind at the back, headed toward the south end zone. The Huskers push the lead. The Huskers push the lead to 24-0. To 24-0. Two eligible.
We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Two eligible each way. M at the back.
He still can't get lined up.
Fedoni motions. Heinrich gets the snap. Play act, flips it out the flat. Caught. Touchdown. Thomas Fedoni. Easy little catch in the corner of the end zone. Nebraska's on the board. 6-0 Big Red. So it's a 55-yard attempt. Wind at the back. Headed toward the south end zone. So Tristan's long is 47. He certainly has the leg strength. Snap down, kick sailing towards the uprights, and the kick is good. He banged it in there. 55 yards out, and the Huskers push the lead to 24-0.
Wrapping up hour number one here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. I'm Ravi Lulla, Andrew Rogers here with me, and joining us now, very happy to have this guy on, is our old friend, old DB.
DB,
what's up, man? How are you?
I'm good, man. How are you guys?
Good. I just love DB, first off, in that clip of TA banging in that field goal. That was such like a proud coach moment.
Let's go.
It's just interesting. I was telling anybody that would listen, like the last couple of weeks, you kind of got a chance to be around him. You guys watch a ton, and he got his mechanics back after he wasn't feeling very good. He was kind of overcompensating for an injury, and I always joke that he's a little OCD. So practicing proper mechanics, his confidence is through the roof. So I felt like his coming out party is still yet to happen, and he's definitely trending on the right side.
DB, let's stick with that proud coach moment here. I know you guys have a huge matchup with Westside tonight, Westside and Bellevue West. How are you feeling going into the matchup with what at the start of the year were thought to be the two best teams in the state?
I'm excited. You guys know me, man. I'm a total empath, which means, I feel. I go by feel. I can smell BS. But, conversely, though, like when I'm bad, I'm awful because I need to be surrounded with people that I think that can help control my emotions just because, they can run rampant. And so there was no coach speak yesterday. I got to talk last. Westside's family's going through kind of an emotional time with the loss of a loved one. And so I spoke last yesterday to our defense, and I told them, I said, listen, all bets are off for tomorrow on how I'll feel, what our message is. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that this is just another game because it's not. It'd be cool to go Nick Sirianni and say, hey, you know what? We get up for Dallas. We the same as Washington, what do I tell our fans if we land it? Listen, I get it. Right. But it's the playoffs and it's the quarterfinals and it's not just another game. And, oh, by the way, it just so happens to be Bellevue West. So, no, I wouldn't say no love lost there. It's a friendly rivalry. People know I get along with Coach Huffman really well. I saw him a couple weeks ago down in Lincoln with his son when he was taking in the Nebraska football game as a fan. And so, they wanted to play us and they were looking forward to it. And didn't feel like we got our respect the first time around. We heard a lot of the injuries, excuses, and who was hurt and who wasn't, and sometimes it's just personal. And I think our guys understand that. They're well aware of that. Some guys get the benefit of the doubt when they don't have all their guys, and some guys don't get any credit because they do have their guys. So. Don't think that that's the storyline, and we're not hiding behind it, and we're going to embrace it and know that it's just one more step to get to where we're trying to be to defend this title.
DB, talent on both sides, but the game control that Westside showed the first time around kind of makes this matchup still seem lopsided. How do the boys avoid a slow start and underestimation of the opponent here?
Well, that's a great question. And what we've done is the misnomer about Coach Huffman is that it's this aerial high flying attack, but he does a really good job of self-scouting. They're about as even-handed as it gets. They're probably 50 and some change, 49 and some change run to pass. So for us, it's status quo. We got to stop the run. Right, we know we're going to get inside zone. We're going to get a sprinkle of jet. We're going to get a little outside zone. When they go empty, they want to run QB power. And so we got to shut down the QB run game. They found a little bit with that last time around when we went to some of our different packages. So, we'll stay fresh in terms of trying to stop the run. We've been good against it all year. We got a defensive line where it isn't real star-studded, right? I mean, not a ton of Power 5, Group of 5, any 5 offers. We just have some blue-collar dogs that go to work, and they take that kind of stuff personal. So we got to stop the run. And as you guys know, and I'm sure Bellevue West knows and Coach Huffman knows, we're always going to have something that we haven't shown before defensively for these guys. And we got a couple of things that we feel really excited about that our guys kind of rallied behind the install on Sunday and Monday. So we're gonna try to do what we do, knowing full well that they've got some monsters, right? They've got DK and Goff is running the ball well, and they've got their I don't know, I think they're the triplets for media's sake, but they've got the 2-0 outside and they got Goodwater and Whaley inside. So we got to play football. We won't be. There's no lack of dialed in. It's Bellevue West and it's the quarterfinals. And it's funny, everybody always talks about our defense against their offense. But our offense is pretty explosive. They're going to have to figure out a way to stop us too. So, I mean, I get it. I always joke tongue in cheek. If you look at the rosters on paper, they're supposed to have some pretty good players too. So let's line up and play it.
Yeah, you mentioned your offense. You're only averaging 49.7 points per game this year. So, I mean, I don't know if that's good or not. But, DB, you mentioned, it seems to be this weird narrative that, like, Westside is just more talented than everyone else. And you mentioned kind of your D-line. Correct me if I'm wrong here. You don't have a single D1 offer in your front seven on defense.
Nope.
And you don't have a single D1 offer on your offensive line.
Not one.
And somehow, though, the narrative gets spun that you guys have all the talent and Bellevue West is just, they've got a couple skill guys, but Westside is just so much more talented. I guess, does that bother you at all? I mean, at the end of the day, Bellevue West is at least as talented as you guys, right?
Yeah. It drives me up the wall. It drives me up the wall because, there's a ton of misnomers, right? We got 4 guys that are out of district. 2 came with their coach. 1 came from Papio, and 1 was kicked out of school and nobody wanted him. So the narrative that this is like transfer high, it's laughable, but we like it because we know that this is about family. Mm-hmm. This is about a community of schools. We don't call it Westside Public Schools. We call it Westside Community Schools because it's for the community. When there's articles in the paper with the World Herald and Jalen Lloyd and Tristan Albano, and he says, hey, you know what? It felt a lot like Westside. It's a family here. See, that's what you get when you get here. So we rally around that. You could make the case. Our 2 most impactful defenders, RJ Eckhart, Ryan, and Bo Ryan. RJ's probably going to go to Hastings. Bo's not sure if he's playing football. But when you look at the narrative, it's, well, our 4-star is the least talked about of the bunch. It's Christian Jones. And all we hear about Christian is, well, he hasn't been physical and he's not as splashy like, he tests in camp. So we don't have any problems with motivation, and we embrace it, right? It's not one of these deals like we don't run from it. We talk about it openly because we know in our heart of hearts we got a couple of mantras, right? We got your 6, right? I got your back. Tonight we will have Coach Lamanchi's back. Love always wins. That means it's not for the guys across from you. It's you playing for the guys behind you. And A for one for A, all for one, one for all. We got no problems getting motivated because what we do is what we live. It's not just words. It's a lifestyle.
DB, let's switch to Nebraska real quick here in the last couple of minutes. We got you. We haven't talked to you really since Nebraska's been playing this stretch of good football. They've won 5 of their last 6. They are 1 win away from bowl eligibility. They're kind of in the driver's seat for the Big Ten West. What have you seen that's changed from the rough start to the season where they go 0-2, or has anything changed and the process has just played out the way it's supposed to?
So you guys both remember, I felt like Nebraska's biggest problem going into this season was emotional and not physical.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew the roster. You guys know. I mean, the roster wasn't super star-studded, and I still wondered how they were going to get chunk plays in the passing game. But I felt like if they had a chance to buy in to kind of the not just the next man up mentality, but to be selfless, then they had a chance. And you've seen that. See, they've embraced winning ugly. They care nothing about style. It is all substance. And they openly root for one another, even though it could be at a particular player's expense, right? Bear has to cheer for Reimer, and Omar Brown has to cheer for Phelan Stanford, and Prohaska has to cheer for Turner Corcoran, and on it, Jeff Sims has to cheer for Harburg. They've embraced that it's about them and not about anything else. Just control what you can control, and that's what they've done really, really well.
Man, DB, 40 seconds here, sticking with Nebraska. You see the game so differently, and I found that out quickly when working together. What's the one thing or stat that's grabbed your attention most that media guides wouldn't include about this Husker team?
I tell you what, it's the lack of missed tackles. When the first guy has an opportunity to get a guy to the ground, they typically get them to the ground. It's an underrated, underappreciated stat. But with all those tackles for losses, when guys don't break tackles, you give yourself a chance to play good football.
DB, we will get you on for a long segment next
Please.
time because that was obviously not enough time with our guy. But we appreciate you joining us, man. It was good to hear from you.
Hey, anytime, man. And stay close to Bill. He's a good man. You guys do good work.
Hey,
Thank you,
appreciate
sir.
DB.
That's our good friend, old DB, David Benning. We appreciate him joining us. We've got Michael Rose-Ivey up next.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back.
Why they're happening, they're doing contact. A lot of them on just the center like the street. But why they're happening, what we do better, and then we just creating drills based on our body of work to help us. So we won't do ball security today, but the results were shown for ball security today. So to me, you don't change things better, but if you do things better, it's actually change something. So
we will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
I hate to say this because it's embarrassing to say, but we coached it better. We coached it better. We sat down as a staff on Sunday and went through every single fumble, why they're happening, what are the commonality. A lot of them have been on, just the center quarterback exchange. And but why they're happening, what can we do better, and then we just created drills based upon our body of work to help us.
Kicking off hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. I'm Ravi Lulla with Andrew Rogers.
Hey, that's me.
That is you. We are brought to you by our friends at Rockbrook Camera. Rockbrook Camera has you covered no matter what kind of photographer you are, just a casual one or a professional one. They can help you become the best version of that with their latest technology, including things like mirrorless cameras. They can also give you unlimited support after the sale with monthly classes to help you learn about your new equipment. You can trade in your old gear to help you upgrade, or you can check out their extensive rental department. Make sure you go to rockbrookcamera.com or check them out in Omaha, 168th and West Center, or in Lincoln, 70th and Pioneer. That's Rockbrook Camera. Joining us now is our friend, former Husker Michael Rose-Ivey. Michael, how you doing this morning?
Doing good. Still playing football, so that's always a good thing around this time of the year.
I was going to say in November, that's all you can ask for, right? Is playing football that matters.
Exactly.
And that's where Nebraska's found themselves for the first time in quite a long time with winning 5 of their last 6, their first 3-game winning streak since 2016. What have you seen just in the last month and a half from Nebraska that has impressed you the most, specifically in regards to how the coaching staff has handled this season?
I think what started, obviously, the kind of rough start, a little slower start than probably we all would have liked. I think the response from the team, from the coaches, from the program, sticking with the main message has been, Rule's message is to go the process. And like we saw, heard in that soundbite displayed, he said this week, we coached it better. And I think that's something he really lives by. He really believes in. That's really a big part of their philosophy. And I think everyone is stuck to that type of mentality. So when you get people aligned and doing everything together, it makes going through adverse and getting through adverse situations a lot easier. There's still challenges that they still got to, still have to fix and still have, a part of their team identity. I'm sure that he wants to get rid of, but they're on the right path, and I think the schedule leads them to be able to finish out strong. And that starts with this week in Michigan State.
MRI bowl game eligibility on the line for the first time in a long time. As a former player, are you thinking about that at all going into this matchup if you are a player on this team?
Yeah, for sure. I think I know pre-NIL, I'm sure I was. I don't know with NIL, their pocket may be a little bit bigger. I know that bowl stipend was a little bit different than when we was getting month to month. So it was definitely something. Get a nice little trip. It's that wind tunnel on what is that, West Stadium? Man, that you want to get away from there as much as you can. So getting out of there and going somewhere, hopefully on the coast and close to a beach or somewhere would definitely be nice. But yeah, that's definitely something we thought about. That was something we wanted to do. It takes me back to the year, with Riley when we were, I think, 5-7 going into, possibly getting a bowl and went out to UCLA, and that was one of the best trips. I think that trip propelled kind of, and the prep and during that bowl prep kind of propelled us to start off at 7-0 the year after by just getting that trip. So there's a lot of momentum you can get out of. Those extra practices are always needed. If you got some freshmen that haven't played and you can use those 4 games. And still having red shirts, the opportunity to get those guys involved on special teams and things like that. So I know it's something that Coach Rule definitely wants in more than one way.
MRI, I know you just mentioned how that going from a bowl game a year prior can carry over with a ton of momentum to go 7-0 the next season. The 2024 schedule was just released yesterday for Nebraska. And if you really look at the top half, 7-0 seems highly likely. And then, you could be 7-0 playing your best football against the toughest opponents who are backloaded on that schedule. So I'm curious, with all that experience, do you think what happened to you guys when you played could also be the case if Nebraska keeps winning like they are this year? And do you like the idea of having your toughest opponents backloaded on a schedule like it is next year?
For sure. I think there's advantages to it. The season has has ups and downs. You know, obviously throughout each week, you're not going to look at the opponent and say, you know, guarantee a win here and there. But like you said, it does look favorable. I think as many reps as they can get. There's going to be quite a few guys, especially that's playing right now, that's going to be coming back next year and going to be contributing to the team. So I believe, I mean, that's definitely something that is doable. It's definitely something I think that's within reach. You know, obviously I tweeted out, you know, those last 5 weeks are going to be tough, but you know, I think a year into Coach Rulla's program and you know, the second off season and all those things, I think there'll be a lot of improvement. Obviously, you got to win on the recruiting trail, things like that, but you know, the development's going to be there. So I think it'll be intriguing to see, and I think it's, like I said, something they definitely can do.
Michael, I'm curious. You know, you mentioned that you were aware of like, hey, like this gets us to bowl eligibility, or hey, this game matters for a different reason. As a coach now, how do you kind of balance making sure the guys don't get too overly emotional or overly hyped up for a certain game or put too much pressure on themselves, yet still acknowledging like, hey, maybe this isn't just another game? How do you strike that balance?
I think that balance is, you know, that for that first strike is really in the off season, and kind of you look at Coach Rule, like I talked about earlier, you know, that process mentality, you know, that, you know, Nick Saban talks a lot about that, you know what I mean? And then, you know, a lot of coaches, you know, great coaches kind of have that same philosophy of process mentality. One game at a time, one moment at a time, live in the moment, all those things you've heard Coach Rule say. And I think when you have that mentality, you know, that's something that's always a part of your program, everything you do. You talk about that at the food line, right? You talk about that being process oriented, playing ping pong in the game room, right? It's kind of always something that's kind of mentioned, even in a joking way with the players. So I think that up and down motion is kind of taken care of with that philosophy. Now, obviously, you know, the human part of it, the human element. They say I played 3 great games in a row. I've made plays. I feel myself a little bit. You know, the young lady in the front row that wasn't noticing me in my class is starting to, you know, look back and agree with my answers or whatever the case is. So, you know, that human element is always a part of it. But I think when you have that mentality, you have that focus, everyone's aligned in that mission and the way you go about accomplishing that mission. I think that's where you kind of decrease those roller coaster rides, you know what I mean, and playing a more consistent football and just being consistent, you know, throughout everything we do.
Michael, defensively, how impressed were you last week and even in weeks before with this team's ability to tackle in the open field? And do you think that ability, or at least their ability to do that, is the best skill this defense has?
I would agree. I played with Nebraska, but this is definitely, I told my dad, we were watching the game, this is one of the better tackling all-around defenses that I've seen or played with in a while. You know, I was just looking at the numbers from last week. They had 9 guys registered, you know, a part of or had a tackle for loss. You know, and that's just the swarm of their defense. I think you had at least 12 guys that had at least 2 or 3 tackles. You know, the amount of people they're able to play within that scheme and the versatility and the different positions Coach White puts those guys in, but they're still able to make plays. That just goes to show you, obviously, there's some skill there, you know, within those guys. But like Coach Rule talked about with the fumble drills, I'm sure the defensive staff has, you know, put together a pretty elaborate plan on how to teach and coach tackling and leverage. That's one of the hardest things, I think, for people to understand, especially in a me world, right? You're not thinking I'm one of 11. You're thinking I'm the only guy on the field to make the tackle. I got to, you know, cut across the guy's face or, you know, lose my leverage because, you know, I'm not aware that there's someone else there to help me. So I think that's just a testament of obviously the skill of the players, but also the coaching staff, you know what I mean, putting those guys in the best position and coaching those tackling positions. You know, you can't just do, hey, line up and run at a 45-degree tackle. Hey, let's work on, you know, the middle field safety, getting to the middle of the field now, breaking down out of your tackle, out of your break, and make a tackle on a post, on a slant, you know, and putting those guys in those type of situations. That's what the great coaches do. So I think they're doing a good job of that and showing.
We're talking with Michael Rose-Ivey, former Husker. MRI, before we switch our focus to Michigan State here, I wanted to just ask how impressed you've been with Prince Will as a true freshman coming on the way he has and being not only kind of a disruptive guy on that defensive side of the ball, but seemingly having a really good grasp, if you listen to Tony White, just a really good grasp on the overall defensive concepts.
Yeah, man, it's always impressive when a freshman can come in and do that. Obviously, you know, where was he listed as a guy that probably make an impact in the offseason? not many guys would have probably guessed, he would be able to make the impact he's had. But, just to be able to do that, the respect I bet he has of those older guys, being able to come in. You always have that one freshman, that's he's ahead of the curve. It was kind of like Malik Collins for us when he came in. Like he was probably the most focused, driven. Like, hey, he said, I'm gonna be here for 3 years. I'm getting out, take care of my family, and get into the league and see where he's at. And it's kind of that same mentality you kind of see with him. He's hungry, he wants to play, he wants to learn, and he's a guy I'm pretty sure is probably always in the coach's office, trying to get better, trying to get that extra rep. And it's showing, And I think that's just the development that, again, is a testament to, the coaches and how they're developing everyone. Everyone is a part of that development, not just the 11 guys that are starting, but everyone's a part of it. And, hey, when it's your time to step up and make a play or play within your role, be ready to go. So, yeah, I think he's doing a great job, and he's going to continue doing it.
MRI, is there anyone on this team you'd like to see more involved in the offense this week, whether it's a young player getting his reps or someone that just hasn't gotten the ball much this year?
Not really. I thought the way they spread the ball for the most part last game was fairly decent. I mean, obviously Harbaugh didn't throw the ball much. But obviously, the big playability of Felicia, that's something that pops out you would like to see more of. Malachi Coleman, again, the big body target. From Kansas City, Jaden Doss, you like to see him get into action a little bit more. But I think the time for those guys will be in the future really to get that chemistry and get that feel of what they really need to do in offense to be those breakaway guys. But, like I said, I think for what they're doing right now, Emma Johnson had a great performance in the role he had, in the limited carries, and still making some big time runs for him. So not really anybody I would say I would want more breaking out. I think just more balance. Obviously, just the turnovers. That's the biggest thing. It's really not even about the players, right? As far as making those big plays or getting a bigger role or anything like that. It's taking care of the football, and I think you get more opportunity to get those guys the ball and run the ball a little bit better and be able to find some openings and play action pass situations.
Michael, I know the coaching staff has talked about this week, well, maybe this Michigan State team is a lot better than we think they are, trying to say, hey, maybe they're closer to 6-2 than 2-6. I'm not necessarily buying that part of it, although maybe they should have won a game or two more than they have. Have you seen anything from this Michigan State team that you think could give Nebraska problems tomorrow, or is it more of those things you talked about of making sure they play clean football, and if Nebraska does that, then they'll be okay?
I think playing clean football definitely is a big part of it, but just looking at Michigan State from a glance, they have the 6th ranked strength of schedule in the country. That, like Coach Rue, I think, pointed out, in Rutgers, Minnesota, Iowa, they were in some pretty good positions to be able to win those ball games, at least being in the third quarter, still being in those ball games. They've been in some tough matchups. Obviously they've been blown out a couple of times, but they've been in some pretty close games. Teams that, obviously Minnesota, Nebraska lost to. They were playing them tough for a little bit. Haven't played Iowa yet, and also Rutgers. So I think there is some spark that could be there for these guys. Obviously, they don't have anything to lose. They obviously understand the turmoil they've had kind of off the field with Coach Tucker and kind of how that situation played out. They've lost quite a few transfers. They have quite a bit of injuries, especially some key spots. But again, I think it's just Coach Rule trying to keep his guys on the edge. But I do think we're going on the road. It's senior day for those guys. It hasn't been the greatest, maybe experience they probably thought they would with all kinds of hype that came with Coach Tucker going to Michigan State. So I can see an injured dog, in the corner type of mentality from Michigan State that I think Coach Rule is kind of sparing his guys for. I think as far as what they have, their quarterback is a pretty young freshman that, I think it's has some good upside. And a lot of people are thinking he's not even going to stay there after this year due to all the stuff that's going on. Kid from California, I think Hauser is his name, but I think it's going to be a closer game than maybe what a lot of Nebraska fans would like. Just being on the road and it being a senior night, and like I said, them kind of having their back against the wall, nothing to lose. So look for special teams to be a big part of that. They struggled really bad there. And actually, I just looking up that their special teams coordinator is Ross Hales, who's my linebacker coach.
That's right. Nebraska. That's right. Small world.
small world seeing that. So see if Nebraska take advantage of their special teams and get something going on the punt return unit. So I think it'll be a pretty decently close game. I think Nebraska still can win by 8-10, but I think it's going to be a close game. It's going to be one of those Big Ten type of battles.
All right, MRI, we'll get you out of here on this. You kind of gave a little tease of a prediction. Let's get one from you. You think Nebraska wins, loses? Give us a ballpark here.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a 24-16 type of game. Like I said, I think the running back, like Coach Rule was talking about I think earlier this week, I think the running back's pretty decent. I think the O-line, like I said, had some injuries. They struggled, but they have some very unique run schemes. So I'll be interested to see how Nebraska fits that up with the tight end movement and the guard movement. But like I said, I think 24-16 Nebraska wins. Hopefully we can play a clean football game. Special teams, continues to be a bigger impact than just flipping field position. And again, they get another win and keep this thing rolling.
Michael Rose-Ivey, former Husker. MRI, we appreciate your time as always. We'll talk to you again next week.
No problem at all. Go Big Red.
Hey, thanks, man.
That's right. Go Big Red. We'd love to hear from our guy, MRI, in that situation. You mentioned to Michael that 2024 schedule that came out yesterday. And if you hadn't seen it yet, I would encourage you to go look it up. We'll go through it a little bit here, but man, you mentioned the opportunity next year for Nebraska.
There's a big one.
Start 4 straight home games: UTEP, Colorado, Northern Iowa, Illinois. Then they go on the road at Purdue. Again, probably one of the easier home games, not just because of opponent, but Purdue's not a particularly hostile environment.
Easier road game,
right?
You mean, right?
Yeah, easier road game. It's not a particularly hostile environment. It's, you would think in year 2 under Ryan Walters, they'll be better, but probably not all the way up going yet. Then they have Rutgers at home, which low-key could be pretty challenging. That Rutgers
based on how they're playing this year.
Yeah, and Shiano knows what he's doing. Like, however you feel about that guy,
coach.
He's a good football coach. But that's a winnable game. That's not a juggernaut team. And then you're at Indiana, again, probably one of the other easier road games you can have in conference.
It's the first 7 games.
Those are your first 7 games. Only 2 on the road that are very manageable road games. The rest are at home, and not a juggernaut to be found in the first 7 games of the season. Like 6-1, 7-0 is very much on the table.
It's reasonable.
Yeah. And maybe I'm not at a point where with Nebraska I can expect that. I mean, depending on how the rest of the year finishes out, maybe, because if Nebraska either wins out or goes 8-4 and only loses 1 on the way out, like maybe I will feel different and be like, yeah, maybe they should go 7-0 to start. But there's an opportunity on the table for them before. And listen, the last 5 weeks is a juggernaut. It goes at Ohio State, UCLA, bye, at USC, Wisconsin, at Iowa. That's going to be really, really interesting. Now, the Iowa one does give me a second of pause because I'm still not convinced Kirk Ferentz is going to be here next year.
See, he said yesterday or the day before that he sees
planned
himself
on it.
coaching, but it's not up to him if he sees himself coaching.
Well, and he also kind of said it in that way of, my plan is to, and how a lot of coaches, when they're trying to leave themselves some wiggle room and leave themselves an out, kind of phrase things in a certain way.
Sure.
He did phrase it in that way. I'm not convinced that was as definitive of a statement of him returning as some people thought it was. But either way, you've got 7 games that are very winnable. Then you've got a 5-game stretch that's really challenging, but I think you'll find out who you are as a football team. I look at it this way, okay? UCLA and Wisconsin are at home. You got to win the home games. And then if you win 1 more, that's very reasonably, plausibly, possibly.
Are you talking about 10 wins?
A 10-win season. I am talking about 10
I don't know
wins.
if 10 wins is there yet, but I will say this, and MRI alluded to it. The carryover effect that this season will have to next season will be huge, because I talked about that last season into this season. When Nebraska beat Iowa to close the year, that was a huge confidence-building win for this program, not just for the team, for the program, because it reminded these guys that, hey, we can still beat the best of the best on our schedule. And Iowa was a decent team last year.
Yeah.
Like, let's not let's not think just because they had a bad offense that they weren't still a really good defense and had a good special teams unit last year. Like, that's what they had. Like, this year, I think they're more down than they are from last year. So
and they're still 6-2.
Right.
I mean,
and so having that confidence building win coming into the season with a new coaching staff and now finding ways to win this year when it isn't the prettiest, you've won 5 of your last 6. They're slowly gaining momentum up into next season, up into the new Big Ten, with the big juggernauts from the Pac-12 invading and joining to see what the Big Ten can ultimately produce for years and years to come. But it's that step stool, right? You go up one stair, now you go up another stair, now you go up another stair. You're going to also find that ripple effect is going to pay dividends in recruiting.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
When you see a team overcome adversity like they did last year, when they went through a coaching change, when they won that game against Iowa to close it off, and then this year, how not only did they come together, but form they built a foundation faster than I think people expected them to.
Absolutely.
And now they're in position to compete for a bowl game, maybe the Big Ten. And now what you get out of that is, oh, well, one of the best players in the state recently committed just a week ago. You have a ton of other in-state guys that are going to the school now. You have the number 1 tight end prospect or close to it in Carter Nelson that said, no, I'm going to stay home instead of going to the big school. You have a ton of these guys that are like, no, I want to play for Nebraska. Why? Well, it's not just because they buy into Coach Rule's vision. No, they see the program winning. They see the program thriving and succeeding. And then they see a schedule like this, and they're like, I can play UCLA, Ohio State, and USC in the same season. I want to do that.
In 4 weeks.
I want to do that.
Yeah.
And so you're not just going to get that from in-state kids who grew up loving this program. You're going to get that all over the place. You're going to get that down in Texas where they have great relationships. You're going to get that up in the Northeast. Ravi, you may get a quarterback out of the portal that or you may flip a recruitment of a quarterback because of where Nebraska finishes this year.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they get Lincoln Kleinholz or Keinholz, I can't remember his last name, who's committed to Ohio State. I'm not saying Dylan Raiola is going to decommit from Georgia to come to Nebraska. But what I am saying is there is high potential to get somebody to do that because they see an opening at Nebraska of, hey, I don't think they're fully bought in to their quarterback. Now, I'm not also pushing out Harburg either just yet, so pump the brakes, people. I'm just hypothetically speaking here. You're going to find out, though, that you're going to get top-tier recruits coming into this program that want to play here under Coach Rule because of the early success they're seeing.
Well, last thing here on the 2024 schedule, that November 16th game at USC. Early hot take here, no Caleb Williams, and Nebraska is the style of team, at least right now, that has given USC problems.
Giving them fits.
That, to me, is a game I look at and go, they might be able to steal that one.
Doesn't USC, though, have a 5-star in the wing?
There's always a 5-star in the wing. You can't tell me Caleb Williams is the second coming of Patrick Mahomes and tell me he's easily replaceable. Like, it can't be both. Coming up next, we've got a little bit more. I want to talk about our keys to the game for Nebraska this week here on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We will be back. We will be back. will be back. We will be back.
Man, you mentioned a little bit here, but this is what the Ryan Walker Phillips do. Again, probably one of the start. I'm in that situation. You mentioned to Michael that this would Michael Rose-Ivey. No problem, we'll be good. No problem, we'll be good. No problem at all. Go be red. No problem at all. Go be red.
We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Oh yeah, I love going on the road. I get to sleep. I sleep on the plane. I usually try to get to the hotel and sleep. Unless Keith has media for me, and I love being in the hotel. I love being with the guys. Coaches. I like going to the movie with. We do that at home, obviously too. But I love walking into another team stadium, especially a place like Michigan State. A place that I respect. I'm excited. I'm excited to watch these guys go play, and it should be, like I said, I expect this to be a great football game with two physical, blue-collar, tough teams, and I love playing at 11 a.m. So, I like to wake up and play. So I'm really excited to see the guys and see what they can do.
We're halfway through the show here on a Friday here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. I'm Ravi Lulla with Andrew Rogers. We're on AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, as well as Twitter, YouTube, all the places on the internet, at least all the safe for work places on the internet. You can get a hold of us on the Warhorse Sportsbook hotline, 888-638-4876, or you can send us an email, andrew@hurrdat.com or ravi@hurrdatsports.com. I want to tell you about our friends over at Dyer Law. If you've been hurt in a personal injury accident, you can count on the Dyer Law team to provide you with a helping hand when you need it. No matter what you're dealing with, call the Dyer Law team at 402-393-7529 or visit dyer.law to chat with trusted professionals about your personal injury claim. That's DYER.law. So I wanted to get into a couple things here. First and foremost, wanted to get to our keys to this Michigan State game. We've got
let's do it.
A pretty packed schedule the rest of the way, so I wanted to make sure we got to that because I do think, like MRI said, this is more about what Nebraska does than it is about what Michigan State does for me.
No problem at all. Go Big Red.
Exactly. And so for me, one of my biggest keys, and I said this kind of tongue-in-cheek to Brunts yesterday. Was that when we talked to Brunts? Whenever we talked to Brunts. That as long as Nebraska doesn't go worse than -2 in turnovers, then I think they win this game. And ideally, obviously, like if they're even in turnovers, that's for sure a W. Like I have no question about that. If they can, I think -2 is the highest or the worst they can get without and still have a chance to win. If they're -3 or worse, I just don't see a path forward. But so for me, it's just managing that turnover. I'm not even going to say win the turnover battle because I don't know that they're going to, and they haven't needed to. But manage the turnover battle so that, maybe don't put your defense in the red zone automatically when you turn the ball over. Maybe don't have it in really critical situations where you're taking points off the board for yourself. Just manage the turnover battle because at this point, I assume there's just going to be turnovers. That seems to be the nature of the team at this point. And so,
What gives you that vibe?
Well, we're 2/3 of the way into the season, and it's like, well, I think this is I don't think this is getting cleaned up this year.
Although I think it can get corrected.
It can get better. I think they're going to improve it. I don't think you're going to go from 3 and 4 turnovers a game to 0.
But if you're averaging a C in school, it could be a B by the end of the year.
Sure, yeah, I think you can. I think you can improve from 3 or 4 to 1 or 2 turnovers a game, and that honestly probably gets you to even or a little bit better on a game-by-game basis. But just manage the turnover situation so that A, your defense is not in the most compromised position possible, and B, that you keep that margin within reason. If you can be like a -1, I'm going to feel pretty good about this team, which is a crazy thing to say. But that's where my first key is.
And I'm with you. I share that one as well. Protecting the football. And I'm actually going to say win the turnover margin. And I'm going to keep saying that until they win the turnover margin. For this case, too, Michigan State presents some problems in the takeaway area of this game. Look at what they've done the last few games. They had 3 takeaways against Minnesota. They had 3 against Rutgers. And at least 1 in every game this year. So based on the path that Nebraska has been taking and the path that Michigan State's defense has been taking, 1 or 2 turnovers is probably likely in this game.
Mm-hmm.
And that's okay. And I'm with you. Try to rest it about even. But the good news for Nebraska is their defense can recover from a lot of mistakes.
Yeah.
And not defensive mistakes, that is. Offensive mistakes.
Yeah.
So, yes, your margin for error is greater because of that. That you have that safety net behind you, but that is a major key to this game, protecting the football, because not only does that guarantee strides in strides offensively in regards to game management, but also it presents a good opportunity for this team to compile wins down the stretch against opponents that, as I said this to, I think it was Brunts yesterday, that may be favored in games. You may not be the favorite anymore.
Yeah.
Down the stretch of this season, it's either going to be a pick 'em or you're probably going to be the underdog. So think about that, and also think about how important it is to be perfect, because you are looked at as the one that isn't supposed to win this game.
Yeah, that's a good point. Moving on to my second one here, I think I really would like to see them lean on Emmett Johnson a little bit more. I thought he's played well. His numbers really haven't been skewed by a huge run the way like a Josh Fleeks has, or even some of Heinrich Harburg's numbers are skewed a little because of some of the huge chunk plays he had early running the football. I think Emmett Johnson's been pretty consistent. He did have the 1 fumble against Illinois, but only having one fumble on this Nebraska offense makes it seem like you're Fort Knox. So I think they need to get Emmett Johnson the ball a little bit more consistently and maybe a little bit earlier, as opposed to relying on Harburg in the run game quite as much. I still think you're going to end up with 12 to 15 Harburg design runs a game, but I would like to see Emmett Johnson start creeping closer to that 20 number, that 15 to 20 number, because I think it'll give them a little bit more consistency on the offensive side of the ball. I still think their scoring plays are largely going to be off of those chunk plays we've kind of seen, whether in the running or the passing game. But we're talking about putting the defense in good positions, being able to sustain some drives, even if they don't end up in points, is still valuable to giving your defense some time. So to me, my second key is you got to get Emmett Johnson a little bit more involved and a little earlier.
And I'll go to the other side of the ball. Stopping the run is a key to this game and a win for Nebraska. Now, this is more of a continuation key because Nebraska is top 5 in rushing defense this year. Mm-hmm. So it's not more of a, hey, this is a problem, and if they finally solve this problem, they'll improve. No, this is more of a, hey, Michigan State is going to rely on their run game. Mm-hmm. So stopping the run is going to be crucial to just winning this game. They average 108 yards on the ground this year. They don't know who their quarterback is going to be. And it even may be 2 or 3 guys
you might see multiple
getting
guys.
reps, right? But we know that Michigan State has a running back that's pretty good at football. He was somebody that was desired out of the transfer portal. His name is Nathan Carter, not President Carter, President Carter, Ravi. Nathan Carter. And who knows Nathan Carter better than anybody else? E.J. Barthel, the former running backs coach at UConn, and now the current running backs coach at Nebraska. You know, all week Nebraska has been prepping and in the understanding that the Spartans will run the ball a lot this week. Mm-hmm. Because in order to keep this game close, they're going to have to have a lot of time of possession. Mm-hmm. That's the only way to keep this game from getting out of hand for Michigan State. So stopping the run is another big key for this Husker team.
All right, my third key, last one before we take a break here and switch gears a little bit. I think Nebraska needs to play more Creed. We've got the Texas Rangers win the World Series powered by Creed. They're having a little resurgence. They're going on tour next summer. I'm going to try and drag all of my Hurrdat Sports teammates to a Creed concert. Creed and Three Doors Down.
It'll be hard to drag me to a concert, even if I like the artist or band.
I think they need to channel their inner late 90s, early 2000s kid. I need them to play a little bit more Creed. We've already seen the rousing pregame speeches by Coach Rule, the halftime speeches. Nothing will get you fired up more than a little bit higher by Creed. That's key number 3.
Last key for me, score the first touchdown.
I like that, yeah.
In all of Nebraska's wins, they were the team to score the first touchdown. The only exception to that first touchdown statistic was against Minnesota, and it was the first game of the year, and that's why I throw them a bone, because it's a game we all know Nebraska should not have lost.
Yeah, and if they played it now, that they would win.
If you score the first touchdown, you're going to go through this game high and mighty.
Well,
touchdown. Thanks, B.
It does. Speaking of Creed and the Texas Rangers, we're going to switch gears here a little bit and get to Phil Rogers. He covers Major League Baseball.
Recap the season
for Forbes. Recap the season. Recap the World Series. Texas Rangers win their first ever title. That leaves the Minnesota Vikings as the last team in the oldest team in any of the 4 major sports to not have a title.
Fun fact.
Shout out
for your next trivia night.
Yeah, shout out to our guys at Husker 24/7 that are Twins fans, or that are Vikings fans, Twins fans too. But we'll talk Major League Baseball. Phil Rogers coming up next.
We will be back. will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Here comes. In there! And that does it! History in the desert. The Texas Rangers, for the first time ever, are World Series champs. And the celebration begins third base side of the mound, the dog pile, as they jump up and down out of the dugout, out from the bullpen in right field. The Rangers celebrate. The Texas Rangers are World Series champs.
Wrapping up hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. I'm Ravi Lulla with Andrew Rogers. We are brought to you by Dingman's Collision Center. They have 4 great Omaha area locations, family owned and operated for over 25 years, and first place best of Omaha for 18 years running, because they can work on all makes and models, anything from Fords to Teslas, because they invest in the latest technology. That's not the only thing they invest in, though. They also invest in the community, giving back with every car repaired. Go to dingmans.com for more information on both their services and their give back program. Joining us now on that Warhorse Sportsbook hotline is Phil Rogers. He covers Major League Baseball for Forbes. Phil, how are you this morning?
I'm doing great. How about you guys?
We are doing well. We appreciate you joining us just as the season wrapped up a couple days ago with the Rangers as World Series champs. If I had told you when Texas was going through their late season swoon that they were going to end up as the World Series champions, what would you have said?
I would not have been that surprised.
Okay.
To say the truth. I just think the postseason has been for a long time now just its own little tournament. And I think we've seen a lot of examples of teams that went in it limping, that won a couple games early and things turned around for them. So, I just kind of don't buy into, strong favorites. It seems like not very often do the best teams in the regular season wind up being the best teams in October.
Phil, a lot of teams can't pull off buying in the offseason and the trade deadline and immediately turn that into a World Series. Plus, the Rangers did it without arguably their biggest name on the mound in Jacob deGrom. So were you surprised at all that the experiment worked on its first try in Texas?
Well, I mean, if you go back a couple of years and, this is a team that lost 100 games, it's an awfully quick turnaround. I think it kind of validated a little bit one of my long-held theories, which is that most baseball managers don't matter. There are only about 10 managers in a year that matter, and that's the 5 worst managers and the 5 best managers. And, I think from the time that Texas hired Bruce Bochy, I think that changed pretty much as the free agent year where they added Seager and Simeon. I think hiring Bochy, getting him to come out of retirement and buy into what they were doing there, I think that was huge validation. And I got a kick out of watching him in October. And there are a lot of really good managers, and I think Arizona has one, and Torey Lovullo too. But when you're looking at how expressionless Bochy is in the dugout, how nothing that goes on seems to really ruffle him, positive or negative, and I just think that's so much what you want out of the manager, is just such a steadying, calming sort of presence. And I give Bochy a ton of credit for what just happened.
Phil, I'm curious, the bullpen of the Rangers was considered a weak point through most of the year. It obviously came through the way it needed to in the postseason. Do you think that's an area they try and address more than anywhere else this offseason?
Yeah, I'm sure they will try to add some depth out there. But that's really, to me, as much as anything, that's where you can really go out and fine tune during the season at the trade deadline, add some depth. And, by the time we got to October, probably the best reliever in the major leagues was Kevin Ginkel of Arizona. And I don't think we were saying that. And, look at all the places Josh Spores has traveled, and here's the guy they wanted on the mound in the 9th inning. Guys, it's so much confidence in throwing strikes and trusting your stuff has so much to do with being able to pitch in those big moments. And those guys did it, and the flip side of that, we saw a guy that I would argue should be a Hall of Fame closer in Craig Kimbrell, who, in the championship series just sort of melted down for the Phillies. And, that's like so much, that epitomizes that crapshoot of the postseason, I think. There are very few Mariano Rivera's that will just roll out there. I did love Arizona's closer, Paul Sewald, who they got from Seattle at midseason. I loved watching that guy pitch in the postseason, and it seemed like he pitched every time they played. And he would throw those 93-mile-an-hour fastballs almost waist high, and guys would swing and miss. I mean, the whiff rate on his fastball in the postseason had to be well over 50%. And, to my eye, they were sort of nothing pitches, but they were that kind of rising fastball they talk about, which is really just a fastball that holds it tight. And it looks so simple, but guys couldn't hit it. And, there's another guy like like Kevin Ginkel, his teammate, that was a force in October.
Phil, speaking of the D-backs, they had a tremendous year, and going forward, you'd have to think the World Series experience will pay dividends for this young core down in Arizona. It's not going to be 20 years. Like there's no way. Although, Andrew's been wrong before. But if I told you that the D-backs, or maybe not I told you, if you had to guess when the D-backs are back in the World Series, do you think 5 years is too little time?
Probably, not based so much on their talent or, the fact that they're in the Dodgers division, which is where nobody would want to be. Just the odds, just the numbers, what it takes. The fact that both these teams in the World Series this year got through 3 rounds of playoffs before they got to the World Series. I'm not smart enough to know what the odds are of even teams advancing, winning 3 times to get to the 4th round. But by that point, you got to be in double figures. You got to be beyond 10-1. You got to be at 15 or 20-1. And so I think the numbers always work against everybody. You go back and look at the Texas teams that went to the World Series in 2010 and 2011, the Josh Hamilton Texas teams. Those were really strong teams, and they couldn't do it. Look at the Cubs, who couldn't get back after 2016 when it looked like they were set up to be the next dynasty in baseball. It's just such a hard thing to navigate the postseason round because a baseball favorite is such a relative non-favorite compared to pretty much any other sport. I mean, it's not the NFL. The best team doesn't win 80% of the time or whatever percent you would say an NFL favorite wins. And in baseball, it's just different. So, you really do need to seize the opportunity when you have it.
Phil, I'm wondering about the teams that didn't make it through those rounds of playoffs that, maybe we expected to. The Dodgers, the Braves come to mind, teams that were dominant during the regular season that weren't able to navigate October the way the Rangers and Diamondbacks were. Out of those teams, who do you look at as someone that maybe goes into next year as a favorite? Is it the Braves? Is it the Dodgers? Who do you like?
Yeah, it's probably the Braves. Their combination. I mean, you watched. Nobody could get Acuna out. I mean, he was just devastating. Kind of a modern version of Barry Bonds in the postseason, and you put that with having some of the best young pitchers. Spencer Strider is sort of the calling card, but there's a lot of other guys. So you would probably say Atlanta, I would think, although, you put it in context, they're in probably the toughest division. Mm-hmm. So, that's going to be rough too. But yeah, I think that kind of is when you think, watching this play out in October, when teams like the Braves went to the wayside, you kind of figure it's going to be, in October when anything really can happen.
Phil, real fast here, got about 30 seconds. There was plenty of teams that had a down year. Who would be your choice that's prone for a bounce back?
Boy, that's a tough one. But can we count this as a down year for the Dodgers because of the way it ended? I would probably say the Dodgers because they just have so much great talent in their organization. So give me the Dodgers if we can really call this a down year.
Phil Rogers, he covers Major League Baseball for Forbes. Phil, we appreciate your time. Have a nice, relaxing off season.
All right, thanks a lot, guys.
Thanks, Phil. Phil Rogers from Forbes. He covers Major League Baseball. Coming up next, we've got our very own Mike Sautter joining us to talk about a crazy busy high school sports weekend here in the state of Nebraska. Coming up next on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Oh, yeah, no doubt, no doubt.
Mike Sautter.
Yeah.
Mike Sautter.
Oh, man, you're going to put me on the spot.
Mike Sautter.
Kicking off hour number 3 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio on AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, and KFOR in Lincoln. I'm Ravi Lulla with Andrew Rogers. We're brought to you by our friends at Big Brothers Big Sisters. It is their mission to support one-to-one mentoring relationships that ignite the power and promise of youth. Go to mentoromaha.org to sign up to become a big, or maybe you're a little tight on time. You can go to mentoromaha.org and donate money, donate tickets to events. You can, if you're a business owner, you can invite matches, pre-existing matches to your business. You can sponsor events through Big Brother, Big Sister. There's a ton of ways to get involved, even if you're not sure about becoming a big yet. Get involved with Big Brothers, Big Sisters in all of those other ways at mentoromaha.org. All right, joining us now, he's the big brother of the Hurrdat Sports crew, is our guy, Mike Sautter. Mike, what's going on, man?
Just got home a little bit ago. So
early morning for you.
Gonna be home. Yeah. It's all right though. All good. So gonna be home for a little bit and then gonna leave and then gonna come back home and then leave again.
But all good in the Sautter hood?
Yeah. Elective surgery for my wife. So it's nothing. It just
Okay, good.
Nothing crazy, but
Sautter, you mentioned your schedule. You were texting us early this morning about, I think you were in Lincoln for 17 hours a couple days ago. You were in Lincoln for 15 hours yesterday for state volleyball. What's the schedule look like today as you are you going to try and balance state volleyball and state football? How's that working today?
Nah, state volleyball just started right now, or started at 9. I will not be there today just because I got to take care of my wife and stuff during the day. But I'm going to maybe be able to make it to the 4:00 game this afternoon. If not, and the 4:00 I would go to would be Scotts Bluff, Elkhorn North.
Okay.
And then if I'm trying to maybe make it, but it doesn't sound like that's going to be a possibility. And then Bellevue West Side at 7, and then the second half of the 8:00 at Buell with Millard South and Omaha North is my plan. And we have Jacob down at state volleyball all day today.
Okay.
Guy Christian's going to do the visual stuff for us today down there. So all hands on deck this week for trying to just get everything covered and do more than just a little blurb of a thing, right? So trying to just elevate it and make it a little bit different.
Yeah, just a lot going on. You mentioned volleyball. I want to start there, and then we'll get deep into football because on day one, big upset in Class A, the 8 seed Papio La Vista taking down La Vista South. Your thoughts on that one, Mike?
Yeah, they beat Papio South in the Metro semifinals a couple weeks ago, but Papio South wasn't full go. They weren't fully healthy that night. Their setter was out. It's a pretty big upset, honestly, for Papio to win. Papio was Papillion La Vista Monarchs. I mean, they were the wild card. So they didn't even win the district and got in. And frankly, now it's really wide open in Class A volleyball. No volleyball expert here, not that, but I do feel pretty good about Papillion and Lincoln Southwest. Lincoln Southwest probably the most talented team, but Mia Taverdi is a stud middle blocker for Papillion, and she was killing it the other night. And I mean, if she could carry them all the way to a state title, which would be a heck of a story. But she's pretty good. So committed to Oregon.
Good program.
And then Lincoln Southwest is pretty talented too. Their setter's committed to Marquette. So, and she's really good. The biggest story volleyball wise is Class B and Scud, and can they win 9 in a row? And they play Elkhorn North tonight. And if they were to win that, which they're not the favorite to win it, based off seeds anyway,
right?
Then they would play Norris, who is, everyone's the number 1 seed and might be able to get them this time. The last time Scott lost in a state championship, or it's the last time Omaha Scott volleyball lost in a state tournament was 8 years ago. Well, 9 years ago, and it was to Norris 9 years ago.
Wow!
And they played in a handful of finals in this 8-year run. So if Scott can beat Elkhorn North, if Norris wins tonight, then they would play each other again. And I think they played during this 8 times. I'm not 100% sure off the top of my head, but I know it's been 2 or 3 times they've played in a final. So there's that mental kind of hurdle to get over for Norris, even though they'd be the 1 seed. If Scott can beat Elkhorn North and if Norris can win. I know, some dads are probably listening to me right now saying, oh, he picked against us. No, I said if.
Like 100 times you said.
Yeah, like on purpose. I said if.
Mike Sautter said if. That's the tweet. Yeah. Hey, Mike, so Omaha Scott, though, that's a team that
super
that really play like an in-state schedule, right? They play like a ton of different teams that are really, really good, and that's why their record shows roughly 13 losses.
Yeah, they traveled a bunch. They have 1 senior on the team, so really young team. But Paisley Douglas, she's really good. She committed to USC, and Addie West is their best probably hitter, is a pin hitter, and she is going to be she's very good. She's a sophomore. She's very good. But yeah, they play outstate by design. They don't play a lot around here. And if they can, afford to do it or fundraise enough to do it, got some of my money at Scott Volleyball for little kid volleyball camps the last 2 years. So I know that. But no, yeah, they're good. That record, it's by design. They do that on purpose.
Sautter, let's switch back over to football here for a minute. You mentioned some of the big matchups in Class A. Obviously, that Omaha West Side Bellevue West matchup is going to get a lot of the headlines just based on the amount of talent on the field. But low-key, Omaha North, Millard South might be just as interesting. Out of those 2, what are you looking for? And I guess, what are you expecting?
Yeah. Okay. So, I don't know. I was there the first time Westside and Bellevue West played.
Mm-hmm.
And if I remember correctly, everybody played. Everyone played.
Yeah.
Everyone started the game.
Hall got hurt in the game, but he did start.
Everyone played.
Mm-hmm.
I was there. I know everyone played, so I don't get this whole injury thing. This talk about they were injured and all this stuff. No, everyone played. Hogg did get injured, his elbow
in game,
pretty gruesome.
Right in front of us, I think.
Yeah, it's pretty gross. But that was late second quarter, and frankly, the game was already in hand by then.
Yeah, it was over.
So it was. I guess I don't understand the narrative of, they got everybody back. Well, they had everybody the first time. So I don't,
Mike Sautter said if they didn't have everybody the first time.
No, I did not.
I think they're saying, I think a lot of it, and I'm not saying it's a good argument, but McMorris was coming off of an injury. It was his first game back.
He got injured in June. He got injured in track. It's a lingering track hamstring injury.
I'm just saying I think that's the argument that was being made. I'm not saying it's a good argument.
Yeah, I don't buy that. So I just don't. I do think, it could be a little bit different. The weather's going to cooperate tonight, which is great. It's going to be
really, really great.
Early November cold, but not freezing cold like it was last week or 2 weeks ago.
Or it was against Millard South.
Yeah, the wind and all that stuff isn't going to be a factor. So I do think it could be a pretty good game. I think it could be competitive for a little bit. I'm not going to pick the game or anything like that. But I am going to go, and because it could be it'll be the last time I get to see either Kayla Benning or Danny Kalin and Isaiah McMorris and Davon Hall and the Rezaks. Someone's going to play their last game, and I feel like I should be there to watch that.
Sure, absolutely.
So I think that's I think it'll be good, and I do think the CJ Goff and the Bellevue West running attack has been really good recently, and they've come on through district play. I think their line gotten a little bit better, but Omaha Westside's defensive line is so undervalued, underrated, whatever you want to call it. So RJ Eckhart, I don't get the whole Ryan thing. either on him. It's always been RJ. I guess I've never known him to be Ryan. That's his government name, I guess. And JQ, their other end, have been really good. So like up front, they're good. Kim Bell, I don't know with his hand injury wise, but Bo Ryan up the middle, Trevor Spade, like they got guys. Like they're obviously Westside, I think can handle. It's going to be who can stop the run, really. Like we talk about the outside stuff, but I think it'll be who can control the line of scrimmage in the run game.
Sautter, this is a further down the line question, and it just kind of had me thinking about Rizak when you brought up his name, Anthony in this case. So we saw last year, and there are two different players, but we saw last year Tristan Alvano pick up an offer from Nebraska after his performance in the title game. My question to you is, if Westside and Anthony Rizak, like if Rizak balls out, right, goes all the way to the title game, balls out in the title game, could you see maybe something similar happening with him and Nebraska and getting an offer at like that point, similar to what happened to TA?
I don't think so. From what I know, they've already decided that they're not going to do anything with him in Nebraska. So that could change. Things could change. But when I say that, I mean no walk on, nothing. They've as far as that's been what I've been told. So no, I don't think so. Is the answer to your question. So I really don't. I don't think so. And the talk of the Westside, this Westside team being the best team ever.
Oh, addressing it.
Yeah.
StreamYard comment from Ken.
Yeah. Well, just it's been talked about a lot. And at the beginning of the year, I said they could go down as one of the best ever if they,
and we talked about it a little bit last week of where they would rank.
Right. I mean, 85 prep, 03 Millard North, 2019 Bovey West was really good.
I was just about to say, Jose.
They gave up 63 points the whole year. That's crazy. I just, I think it's a little premature for that. But yeah, if you look at it, if they end up running the table like they have, and they end up doing it in the fashion they have, pretty hard to argue that they're not in the conversation. The best ever. I mean, that 03 Millard North team was crazy. And then I think the 85 prep team had like 21 kids that were Division I athletes.
Not all football, but athletes.
Yeah. It's a little tough to go down that road, I think. Especially when you compare eras like that, because football has changed so much.
Yeah.
So it's a little tough. Yeah.
Sautter, I do want to talk about the other, in my opinion, the other marquee matchup in Class A with Omaha North and Millard South. Is that the best? Is that the best other matchup, or do you like a Elkhorn South Lincoln East better, or a Millard West Grand Island?
No, yeah, the North Millard South game is the best. It's the next.
How do you expect that to play out? You've got a couple of teams with really high quality play on the lines.
Yep.
How do you expect that one to play out?
Yeah, I don't expect a ton of points.
Sure. Fair.
I think it'll be a defensive game. Both defensive lines are really good and big and strong, all of that. Can North run the ball as effectively as they did last week against Gretna will be the question. I don't know if they can. If they can, they'll win the game. I just not sure with that Millard South defensive line that they will be able to be that effective with it.
Right.
I'm thinking it's probably going to be a little more like the Elkhorn South game where Circo was having to use his legs and run around and ran for his life, frankly. But the weather's going to cooperate a little bit more. We'll see Jet Tamala, right? Like, is this kind of the next level for him? And my guy Feller's back. So for Millard South, I think, and he's pretty good. So I do, I want to see a good game. Obviously, like I said, I'll plan on being there the second half, and I think it'll be competitive into the second half. So that's why I'm planning on doing that. But it'll be a pretty good game. And Amarion Jackson going against like older guys like Donovan Jones and that defensive backfield for Omaha North is a question. Champ Davis, I'm not sure if he's going to play or not, but he's super explosive for Omaha North. He didn't play last week, and if he is on the field, that's does wonders for their offense. So, and frankly, defense, because he played corner too.
Sautter, I want to skip Class B just for a hot second, go to C1. Were you surprised that the chalk held out of the first round?
No, not really at all. The one maybe surprise was Broken Bow beating DC West. Other than that, no, I didn't. I thought that was pretty. Yeah, I could have maybe saw Aurora beat Adams Central, but I guess that game was 9-7. Yeah. So, no, I wasn't.
Four runs were scored in Game 4 of the World Series.
Is the World Series still going on?
It is not.
It's
no,
over.
Texas won.
It's over.
I don't know. Did anyone
all you care about is high school football and the Jets?
No. Did anyone pay attention?
I watched every game.
I talked to a bunch
Show
of
me
people.
that face.
I talked to a lot of people, and they were like, "I had no idea."
Well, I'll tell you what, too. It was like one of the lowest viewed World Series, and I kind of told Ravi that point of, for me, it's all personality based. I like seeing new teams featured in that game, but for the world of baseball, they need those blue bloods, those heavy hitters like the Dodgers and the Astros and whatever other big team. Even the Yankees. Can you think about the Yankees getting back there? Like that would be one of the most watched World Series just to see that team. But it's because it's the Rangers and D-backs, and the D-backs probably never sold out a game this year until the World Series. And, that's why you get 9.7 million people watching, which seems like a lot, but not as much when you have 13 or 14 million when the Dodgers are in it.
Yeah. Like I didn't watch a single pitch of it at all. So I didn't know. The Rangers won, right?
They did.
Win.
If you had to root for one of those teams, would you have rooted for the D-backs or the Rangers?
I don't know a single player on the D-backs. So the Rangers probably.
Who do you know on the Rangers?
Max Scherzer's.
All right, there it is. All right,
and their right fielder guy that got traded to them.
Adolis?
Yeah, that guy.
Well, his funny story is he got DFA'd by the Cardinals in 19. The Cardinals traded him.
Your crappy team.
Yep, for cash considerations this year for sure. I'll 100% eat that. And then the Rangers, oddly enough, in 2020 DFA'd him too and re-signed him.
Well.
And now, how does he get this good? Is he taking steroids?
Probably.
I'm okay with it if he is. Nobody can do that. Ravi Lulla here for Pro Steroids. You mentioned, I believe last week that you thought, Howell's Dodge was going to beat Ainsworth and it would be the end of the Carter Nelson high school career in Nebraska. That's exactly how it played out. I guess, is that a disappointing end? I'm sure it's, Carter Nelson would have wanted to finish this off for the state title. But was that a disappointing end for Ainsworth? I know it is what you expected.
Yeah, no, I mean, Howell's Dodge and Mike Spears is stuff. Like, I wouldn't call it disappointing at all. The season he had was pretty phenomenal. Their team gave up like 4 points all year or something. I'm exaggerating, people. So I don't think it's disappointing. It just kind of is what it is. I think it was a little bit of to be expected, in that situation, just because, the strength of schedule stuff matters. And yeah, so no, to answer your question, no, I don't think you should be disappointed at all.
Mike, Class B, let's talk about that real fast because you said you may, if you have time, make it out to Elkhorn North, Scottsbluff. Scottsbluff picking up a 14-0 shutout, upset win over York in the opening round. They have Elkhorn North now. Do you think Scottsbluff can continue to make a little magic happen?
Yeah, I think that game's going to be close. Scottsbluff wants to hit you in the mouth and run the ball. And there's no bones about it. They line up and they want to just run it right down your throat. And Boyle is one of the best backs in the state. So here's his chance to kind of come over to this side of the state and do it. How about this for, we talk about the travel thing, people traveling. If Scottsbluff were to make it to the state final, they would spend 4 straight weeks on the bus coming to the east side of the state, like the exact opposite east. So in 4 straight, now they'd have to, obviously win tonight, and then they'd have to beat Bennington, and then make it to the final. But no, I think that game could be close. Up front, I think Elkhorn North is pretty big up front. They like to run it. I honestly, I wish Elkhorn North would throw it to Chase Lofton and Tommy Mechna a little more. But Johnny Ferguson, their quarterback, is really athletic, uses his legs really well. Tinglehoff, their running back, is pretty shifty and quick. So it's going to be Scottsbluff's going to have to play keep away, I think, in order to get that done.
Mike, got a couple minutes left here. Is that the most interesting game in Class B for you, or do any of the other matchups intrigue you at all, like Scott and Blair?
Yeah, I think it's probably the most interesting game. Norris and Bennington is interesting. Norris has won 5 in a row.
Could be a lot of points too, right?
Yeah. Well, I don't know, because Bennington's defense is phenomenal.
Yeah, they're legit.
Yeah. Now, can Norris slow them down enough? I did say this, like in order to beat Bennington, you have to get to 21. And, hope your defense can obviously hold them to 17 or something like that. So, but your goal should be if we can get to 21, which not a lot of people have done. So I just don't know if they can do that. But Norris is kind of on a heater here, and we'll see. Maybe weather's again cooperating. I know Norris likes to throw it around a little bit more, so that may play into it a little bit. But I'm just going to continue to talk about Kyler Lauritsen and how great of a football player he is, which he is maybe even a better football player than wrestler, and he's a 2-time state champ going for his 3rd this year. So.
Sautter, like 30 seconds left. Anything we missed that people should know about for high school football or high school volleyball tonight?
Yeah. Friday night of high school semifinals volleyball is always electric. I've never been, but I'm here. It's pretty electric.
It's fantastic.
If you're looking for that, we will have coverage from all of it everywhere. And then tomorrow, obviously, state finals volleyball, which if the schedule says 9, 11, 1, 3, 5, and 7, it's probably more like 9, 12, 2.
Yeah.
Like you're going to be delayed a lot.
Try 30, 45, maybe an hour.
Yeah. Just prepare for that. But no, it should be a great night of football tonight because the weather is going to really help.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
We will be back. 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 You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Free Hill, got it blocked. In stride. Here come the Huskers. Newsome. 6.
I love Quentin Newsome.
Roll was good. Kick is up. Long enough. And good enough. From 55, a career long for Tristan Albano.
Really excited to see it go through myself. It was amazing.
And the ball's intercepted. Picked off by Tommy Hill. Has an INT. He's at the 15 to the 20. Breaks a tackle. Skirts to the outside. 25. Makes a man miss. Slides his way to the 28-yard line. Tommy Hill's second pick in as many weeks.
This is Sparta!
Give to Johnson. Johnson up the head. Touchdown, Nebraska.
Spartans, ready your breakfast and eat hot.
4th and 12, hard. Picked up again. Tommy Hill, his second pick of the ball game.
We will stand and fight.
Get to the end zone. It'll be a safety.
A new age has begun.
Wide open, it's Jalen Lloyd. The throw, he makes a catch. 30, 20, 15, 10, 5. Touchdown, Nebraska.
Spartans, tonight we dine in hell.
Touchdown, Nebraska. The ball picked up by the Huskers. Scooting down the sidelines. Quentin Newsome to the 30, 20, 15, 10, 5. Touchdown.
You fight if it means you die. You fight, you fight, you fight. You take for once what you want. And I'm just waiting for something good to happen. Who's the guy that's supposed to make
We're in for one wild night.
We are in for one wild night, both today and tomorrow. We've got high school volleyball coming out of our ears. We got high school football coming out of our ears. We got Omaha hockey. We've got Creighton basketball. We got Nebraska volleyball. We got Creighton volleyball. It is a busy sports weekend here in Omaha, in Nebraska in general.
That just sounds like a normal weekend for us.
I was going to say, right? It is. We're live here on AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, and KFOR in Lincoln. Wherever you are in Nebraska, we've got you covered. And if you're somewhere else, get on YouTube, get on the old Twitter stream, or find us on podcasts wherever you listen to your podcast. I did want to give a real quick plug. If you do want our coverage of high school football, high school volleyball tonight, make sure you follow at Hurrdat Sports, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. And you can also follow, obviously, Mike Sautter or Jacob Padilla. They'll be your best bets.
We've got some dudes on this team.
Oh, yeah. The high school coverage is unmatched. I'll put that up against anybody for sure. But wanted to make sure people knew where they could find all that great coverage because everybody does work so hard and brings such a great product. So just wanted to make sure you knew where to find us. You knew where to find all that good stuff. I'll be at Creighton tonight. I know you'll be at UNO hockey, right? Omaha hockey. And obviously we'll have a bunch of the crew out at football games and the volleyball state tournament as well. So we got you covered no matter what you're into.
Do you think Sautter gives a pump up speech to like Jacob, kind of like the
Absolutely not.
And if he did, Jacob would just kind of stand there awkwardly and be like, Mike, what are you doing, bud?
Yeah, well, I don't even know.
I could see Sautter.
I think JP would walk away.
He would just be like, okay.
Mid-speech.
Okay, Sautter.
I could see Sautter giving a pump up speech.
You can see Sautter yelling, if we die, we die.
No.
You get that photo, no matter if somebody's coming at you or not. I wanted to get to our Warhorse sports book. You know, it's supposed to be sports cleanup here, but I wanted to do some picks. So we're going to clean up some of the games we haven't got a preview yet this weekend.
Let's do it
with some picks from our friends at Warhorse. Just a reminder, Warhorse Sportsbook, not just in Lincoln, in Omaha now as well.
That is so awesome.
Game changer for us for sure. You can go to Lincoln, to the casino, and place your bets, or you can go to Horseman's Park in Omaha, 6303 Q Street, and place your bets as well. You can build your bets on the app. You do have to go to either the casino or to Horseman's Park to place those bets, but the app is terrific. You can get live lines, put your bets together, then you go scan the QR code at one of those locations and place your bets. Basically, every major sporting event you can place your bets on, but we're going to talk about college football and NFL right now.
Let's do it.
We've got some picks that we want to make. And listen, if you like our picks, this is not financial advice, but if you like our picks, you can head over to Warhorse Sportsbook. No bets, no glory. Let's start with NFL. I want to start with NFL.
All right, let's do it.
I was looking at the picks you sent me, and I was like, I kind of like some of those games, but I didn't want to overlap.
No.
I don't want to overlap.
Would have been all right.
So we're going.
That's actually okay because then people are like, oh, two people like this game.
So two of them that I liked that you sent me. The first one was Chiefs Dolphins.
You like that one as much as I do?
I do.
Dude, I'm getting so much heat for that, especially in my Pick'ems league. They're like, how do you have the Chiefs so high? I think they're just prone for a bounce back.
I think Chiefs are winning this game, and I think they're going to win it. I don't know if convincingly, but I think they're going to cover the 1.5 or 2, depending on where you got it.
I kind of thought about this game and thought, what can Miami do that the Chiefs can't do better?
Yeah, I mean, so the one X factor there is Tyreek Hill, right? Because Kansas City doesn't have anybody like that, but I think the Kansas City defense is dramatically better than
KC's defense is better than Miami's. Yes,
exactly.
And I like Miami's defense. Don't get me wrong. I like some of their pass rushing, but Mahomes can do everything Tua does. Their success rate on offense, the Chiefs, that is, top 5, while Miami's defensive allowed rate 27th in the NFL. That right there is all I need to know for why the Chiefs are going to win this game. Plus, I think losing to Denver was huge for this game because they're not going to want to lose twice.
Yeah, you can't. Any chance of them overlooking the Dolphins went right out the window with the loss to Denver. So I'm with you there.
Plus, a Tyreek revenge game would have looked much better at Arrowhead than it does in Germany.
Absolutely, yeah.
So give me Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce, and I think Mahomes will make less mistakes than Tua, and that will win the Chiefs the game, and they will cover.
Yeah, I agree. I also had, because this is one that you didn't put on there, so I want to toss it out there as well. I like the Eagles -3 over the Cowboys. That one I don't have a ton of analysis on. I just think the Eagles are better. I think they're a better football team.
I think they are too.
I think they're going to play well against Dallas. It's a rivalry game. They've played well.
Jalen Hurts better clean up his act.
He does need to clean up a little bit, but at the end of the day, I just think the Eagles are better. 3's not a big number. I feel okay about that.
The other two I like, Browns -8 against the Cardinals. I think a lot of people like that just because the Browns defense may be the best in football.
Down to -7 this morning.
They're facing a team that doesn't have a quarterback. Like Clayton Tune is not going to just light the world on fire in Arizona. The Browns will cover. And then Raiders -1.5 against the Giants. This one's a little bit of a bolder pick.
Say that one I wasn't as good on.
Especially because Daniel Jones is going to be back this week.
Yes.
So,
but what's he look like after being off?
I kind of just leaned the direction of Aiden O'Connell and a new head coach. Plus, Adams is unhappy, and he said today that he's ready to run through a brick wall for his new head coach, just like Shane over there. So give me the Raiders at home -1.5.
There is a lot, and I don't remember the stat specifically, but there's a real thing about the week after you fire a coach. There's usually a bump. And the Raiders might be experiencing that bump. My other two, I like Bengals over Bills.
They had a 5-game bump last time this happened 3 years ago.
Rich Bisaccia, was that the one?
Yep.
I like Bengals -2 over the Bills. I just think the Bengals are playing well right now. Obviously, we saw how they played against the 49ers.
Also a home game.
For them. I like the Bengals over the Bills. I think they found their stride, and Joe Burrow finally looks healthy and good to me. So, to me, he's basically I have him second in the league after Mahomes in terms of quarterbacks. I'm taking the Bengals -2. And then I like the Colts +2.5 against the Panthers.
Minshew mania.
I like Minshew. I think he's functional, and I think the Panthers are just that bad. I don't think they should be favorites against anybody.
They're a good defense, and I think that's why they get the edge.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't hate that play. What do you like on the college slate?
College side, I'll go real quick here. And a couple of these are
just
big.
Give me all three in a row.
A couple of these are big numbers. I like Florida State -21.5 against Pitt. That's a big number, but Pitt's awful.
Yeah, but I also thought Boston College was awful when Florida State played them with a 20-point fave.
That was an outlier, but since then they really have beaten up people pretty good. That's kind of why I'm back on that Florida State bandwagon. I'm going to go against our guy B here. I like Georgia -15.5 against Missouri. Okay. I think Georgia's finding a groove, and I made a little money off them last week with them up the way they played. I like them -15.5 against Missouri. I think Missouri's just not in the same neighborhood as them yet, even though they're having a really nice year. My last one, I do agree with B on this one. I like Ole Miss -3 over Texas A&M. I think Texas A&M is on their way to another disappointing year after a pretty decent start. And I think Ole Miss is way better than we give them credit for. We just totally forgot about them after that Alabama loss. And low-key, now they're number 10 in the college football playoff. I like Ole Miss a lot.
Speaking of Bama, I like the LSU-Bama over. It's the first time I'm riding with B all year with this play. Bad defense, yes, for LSU, but Alabama's going to have to score 40-plus to win this game.
Mm-hmm.
And you know LSU is going to score 40-plus to win this game. It's going to be like 41-34 or 41-40, something like that. My favorite play of the week, Arizona +3 against UCLA.
Okay.
The Wildcats, FBS best 7-1 ATS this year, including 5-0 against the spread as an underdog, covering by 17 points per game. Robbie,
man, they're
per game.
Way better this year than I expected.
And then give me the military school Army +18.5. Look, I love me some Air Force, but here's your little nugget. Service academies catching over 2 tutties. 42, 24, and 2. That's 63.6% since 05. 17, 6, and 1 with a 9.8 point per average covering margin when the total closes at 48 or less.
Matt Vrzal coming up next.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
As we wrap up the show here on a Friday, I'm Ravi Lulla, Andrew Rogers here with me. We are live on AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, and KFOR in Lincoln for this third hour. We appreciate all of you joining us here today, and I hope you get off to a good weekend. We are efforting Matt Vrzal. We'll see if we can get a hold of him. But in the meantime, man, we talked about all that's going on across the metro and state in general. You know, that is kind of the one, and I know you're going to be at Omaha hockey tonight. Mm-hmm. That is kind of the one bummer about kind of having a specific beat or something that you cover. Like, I would love, not that I don't love Creighton basketball and exhibitions, but I would love to be able to get out to some Omaha or some Omaha area high school football games.
I would love to be in Lincoln watching state volleyball.
Oh, absolutely. Joining us now is our guy, Matt Vrzal, former Husker, owner of Pison's Pizzeria. Verz, what's going on, man?
What's up, boys? How we doing?
We are doing
It's a Friday.
Yeah, can't complain about a Friday. Yeah, are you gonna be able to be out at Scott tonight, or is Pison's keeping you busy?
We are looking pretty good right now. We got one that's kind of hinging on, so we'll see how they feel. Make sure their tummy doesn't hurt, or they don't have the sniffle. But yeah, we should be able to make it over.
Versus Scott. Great showing in the first round, 42-14, that final over Gross. Have Blair now on the docket. Blair won a close one over Plattsmouth. also a dog in that game, so they kind of pulled off an upset. What do you guys like that you're doing well right now, and what do you think Blair offers that's going to be maybe a little tougher to plan for in this game?
Blair is, I think people kind of sleptwalk on Blair. Blair, very athletic team. They've got good size at the interior parts of their team. They've just got, they're very well coached. For my guys up front, 79 for them, not a big fan of getting blocked. So that will be a challenge for my guys. 53 is not far behind him. And then, you know, the things that jump out, number one for them has a tremendous amount of speed. Their quarterback does a real good job of running their offense. He's not there managing their offense. He runs it very efficiently. So he's impressive. Unfortunately, you know, they got a couple guys banged up. That Plattsmouth-Blair game, Plattsmouth plays a rough style of football. Blair said, "We're your huckleberry. We'll be waiting." And they played it rough too. So it was in games like that, though, you know, sometimes guys get dinged up. I think they lost one with a broken collarbone, and then they got another. Number 6 for them is tough. He is a tough mug, and he's gonna get after it tonight. So we got our hands full. We know that, and we got to go out and just try to be the best version of Scut football in 2023 we can be. And if we do that, we'll let the cards fall where they may.
Verz, I know that you really value, you know, you mentioned some of the toughness of Blair there. I know that's something you really value in terms of the mentality and attitude of football players. Has there been anybody on this Nebraska team, as we kind of shift our focus here, has there been anybody on this Nebraska team that you've particularly stood out to you in terms of their mentality and toughness?
Probably number 2, Gifford. He was one I was nervous about when it started. I was like, man, I don't know about this cat. Not quite sure. The things that I've seen him do on film don't really hit my eye right, which I don't play secondary, so that's probably a common thing. But the way he's played the last, you know, 2-3 games is it's the way it should be done. It's 100 miles an hour, but inside the system. Not out of place a whole bunch, makes good, you know, he has a couple huge pass breakups in some games. He makes some great tackles in games. I mean, he I think is kind of the one they turn to for leadership on that defense. Just me watching communications in between plays. I don't know that for certain, but he's been one that thankfully I was very wrong about when it all started. So tip of the cap to him and everything he's gotten done this year. It's been fun to watch.
Verz, as we look ahead to Michigan State tomorrow, earlier we did our 3 keys to the game for this matchup. What would you say are your 3 keys to the game for Nebraska?
My 3 keys. I would say number 1 would be defense. Just do what you do. Number 2 would be offense. Don't shoot yourself in the foot. And 3 would be special teams. Make the plays you're supposed to make. Meaning, don't get a punt blocked. Don't get a punt return for touchdown. If you're punting it to the right and it goes left, don't just assume it's going to the right. Remember last time we were in East Lansing, that did not go well. Do all those little things. Don't You did block one last week. It was inside your system. Don't get crazy and rough a punter. And you know, if the opportunity is there, take it. But take it inside of your system. Don't get a silly penalty that's going to cost your team. And you know, if they can do that, Michigan State, they'll win that game if they do those things. And then at that point, Nebraska's got house money. They're going bowling, and they got 3 games to go.
Verz, you know, we've talked a lot this week, obviously, about gaining bowl eligibility, and then, you know, a little bit bigger picture of Nebraska and what they might be able to do beyond that. How comfortable are you kind of thinking in those terms of of, hey, Nebraska's maybe got some things on the table at this point of the year that we didn't think were going to be there. Is that something you're even comfortable thinking about, or is it really just about like, hey, let's get to 6 wins and then we can maybe talk about some other stuff?
No, my brain doesn't work that way. They got all they got are 4 games. That's all they got. Because as their head coach said, every game on there we can win, and every game on there we can get beat. So you ain't got nothing right now. And if you do get Michigan State, all you got are 3 more. And after those 3 over, then you get 1 more. So your next play, next breath, next down, that's all you're thinking. You ain't thinking, oh man, we're gonna go to Detroit. You're thinking, hey, let's just go play. And every time we play, if we're the best version of Nebraska football we can be, now all we can do is earn more opportunity to play. And that's about all that can get done. But at the end of it, when it's all over, and if you do win another one and you do get to go to a bowl game, then you can sit back for a week after the season's over. Like, man, we got something going here. We're ahead of schedule. We're playing with house money. So let's take advantage of this offseason. Let's get everybody get better, get more athletic, get more agile, and now we can really kind of shake some things up.
Verse, by no means is this us, putting something in the air, that something could happen this weekend. This team has struggled with injuries. But if there was someone to go down, who would you consider to be the worst loss for the team offensively or defensively at this point in the season?
That was tough for me. I haven't played. Like, I don't. Mm-hmm. That's just bad juju. I will exercise my Fifth Amendment.
That is okay. That is okay.
So, Verse, let me
take it off the table.
Let me ask you about a guy that's come in and replaced some of those guys that have gone down. Justin Evans Jenkins, obviously he came in at guard. He's a true freshman. He actually got some snaps at center as well. How have you looked at his ability to come in and be a contributor as a true freshman? How challenging is that, having played the position?
It was something I thought should have happened. I've said it since spring ball that he should have been the guy. He's got great feet. He understands leverage. He's got a mindset that he wants to be the best they got, and that's pretty cool. That's pretty awesome, actually, because people want to say, oh, he's short and he's this and he's that. He's an ass kicker is what he is. He's got no problem going out and doing what he wants to do. He's got no problem, big, small, skinny, tall, whatever he wants to go at, he'll get after it. So he's been one that it wasn't surprising to me. I think he has the best feet on the offensive line.
Verse, I'm going to switch my former question into maybe a more positive angle. Who could the Huskers use back earlier than the rest of the injuries that are currently presented? Because yesterday we heard Coach Rule bring up Buford's name. We heard Billy Kemp's name, Deshaun Singleton, Nuri's name. Out of those 4 guys, who could the Huskers most use back earlier than the rest of them?
I would say any of your, are those guys receivers?
Billy Kemp.
Billy Kemp.
Yep.
Billy Kemp would be the main one, because I think they need Billy Kemp, if used correctly, I think is your middle of the field, short yardage, first down conversion guy.
And a guy that can take punts for you.
Yeah, he'd be the one.
Matt Vrzal, we appreciate your time as always. Good luck tonight to you and Scott, and we'll talk to you again next week.
And who else?
Who else?
Fight on Grand Island.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. I forgot about the Islanders. That's my bad.
Wow.
There you go.
Islanders to win tonight. I'm telling you, that 4:00 game, GI wins.
There you go. He's calling his
Bold
shot.
prediction.
That's Matt Vrzal, former Husker owner of Pison's Pizzeria. Matt, we appreciate it as always.
See you, boys.
Thanks, Matt.
That's our week.
See ya.